All right.
It's starting.
All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics and Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it is Friday, and y'all know if it is the third Friday, y'all know it is time for the Mayor's Forum. So coming up shortly is, of course, going to be our beloved brother, the one and only Mayor Raz J. Baraka, out of the great city, my home city, of course, our home city, one of the great cities in this country, in the great state of New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. Our beloved brother, Mayor Raz J. Baraka, is going to be coming up on the Mayor's Forum. And then, of course, we're going to be talking to, again, I understand, we're going to have our sister back on, right, Brother Zaid? Maria Lopez-Nuñez?
Yeah, your mic is off, Zaid. But yes, we're going to have Maria.
I'm running my mouth, and y'all couldn't hear me say a word. Right?
That's because you were too concentrated on that cat.
Yeah, this Rhino would appreciate it. He's named after Nas.
Okay.
But anyway, yes, we're going to look at Ida, Hurricane Ida, from an environmental justice and environmental racism lens.
Right.
What does all this stuff mean for Black and brown folks? And whenever we see environmental justice in the news, it never appears to look like us for some reason. Why?
Right. But we know the reason.
We're in the heart of, Jersey. So much environmental challenges from cancer, pollution, and on down to this recent hurricane activity. That's a whole frontier that we're not represented well enough on. So we're gonna have Maria take us to school on some of that.
Okay.
We're looking forward to that.
And then, of course, coming up at 8 o'clock is it's going to be the rundown, everything that's been going on all week long in the news and so forth. So we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, at 8:30 is going to be our brother, DJ Rhino. He's going to give us the state of hip hop, what's going on and so forth in hip hop. So, that should be a dynamic conversation because there's a lot going on. So, why don't we just see what we can talk about until the mayor come through, John?
All right. So, what's going on, Ed, man? What is? We are talking. What's going on with you? I mean, there's some stuff popping up in terms of infrastructure bill. Will it happen? Will it not? There's stuff going on in Newark.
Infrastructure bill. We got some Democrats, playing politics with it. I have to be at Congressman Josh Gottheimer's office for a rally to get him to get out of the way with, trying to play this. Well, we think the bill is too big. Too big for who?
Wait, is this a Democrat or a Republican?
Yeah, it's a Democrat out of Bergen County. The great Donna Kay just popped in. Let me make some room so she can get in.
No, I'm just in here temporarily. I just wanted to let Ed know I'm in your neck of the woods in Jersey City, but I'll be joining back at the 8 o'clock hour.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, Mr. Riley? How are you, sir?
What's going on?
But I'm gonna sit here and go back to Ida, this justice, and what I will say, I'm glad that Essex and Union County at the latter part was signed on to get relief because our area was devastated more so, if not as just as much as the other areas in New Jersey. So at the latter part, at first we weren't included, but now Essex and Union County have been included in the hurricane relief.
Which is needed based on what happened. And that goes on right into what our second guest is talking about with the effects of Ida on Black and the lack of infrastructure and the lack of preparing and the need for environmental justice in Black and brown areas.
And what's interesting, I think, Zaid, you talked about it last week about how this bill is going to specifically speak to people living in basements. I was trying to think of a way to say it, but how Governor Hochul spoke to, we have to write our legislation so that it reflects that to the people that we serve. And she was speaking about how many people that lived in basements in various communities died or lost a lot of their home, their livelihood, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
And how many people lost their cars, right? Like I just see all these stories in Newark and pictures of cars underwater, buried, right? And that's all over New Jersey. People's in terms of this flash flooding that no one really expected, but that we suspect is going to become common.
And listen,
Like
here's
major storms like this that are going to happen more often, that's going to lead to a lot of issues.
Warming. Exactly.
Yeah. Right? And that's what Governor Hochul said. We need to stop talking about the 100-year storm and talk about last week's storm, because it's like each storm is outdoing each other. Last week's storm is worse than this week's storm.
It's like there's a competition going on.
Yeah, and I was coming from New York that night of the storm, and I got to Jersey City, and it was like people just abandoned their cars. Cars were just all over the road. People, the water, like if you know how you come and you get on 280 right there, that area was flooded, and people had just got out and just swam or walked to wherever they were going.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know. You're right. Maybe they did swim because down there at that exchange, getting on 280, 109, and all of that, it gets really, really flooded, and they know that. And unfortunately, I mean, people walking in that that kind of water. And remember, one of the other things is that people are not talking about is the rodent problem. That was in all of that water. You know what I mean? And swimming around and people walking in that and so forth. So, I mean, it was really, really terrible,
Highly toxic. Highly toxic, right?
Yeah.
And that's just Jersey. We just talk about Jersey. Jersey and New York weren't the hardest hit areas.
Right.
Louisiana. I mean, what our folks went through, this just off of New Orleans and just off New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Whole communities were just swallowed.
we can,
and a lot of those communities look like our communities.
Right.
And like I just said, I'm in your neck of the woods. And this is a pretty area here in Jersey City, but I'm gonna turn the camera around. Let me see. So you can see, I can't turn around, but you see back here and how all the boats are docked. This is right here down on Park Avenue in Jersey City. But just look, like right there is the water. And I believe all of this area was risen, was flooded last week.
Right.
And it's just amazing. Like this, we always say this beauty, because that's St. Peter's Prep over there. And all of this beautiful area is challenging because of how low-lying it is. And, you know better. I don't know that much about Jersey City, but I was just surprised at how flooded the area was. So do you remember that night, Ed? How far are you from the water, and how was your area in Jersey City?
Well, I'm not that far from, where you are, right? I'm not that far at all. And, but unfortunately, it didn't flood. I'm in the square, so it doesn't flood like that in the square. You down by the waterfront.
Yeah. And that's Donna just gave us some on location reporting. Excellent. Good stuff. It's real stuff.
Yeah. But Kim and I was in Belleville the other day, and we drove through the block. I had no idea Belleville was hit. Newark Avenue in Belleville, I had no idea they were hit that hard. I mean, if you drive through that block, what you see is basically people's entire inside of their houses, all of their furniture is outside on the street. Haven't even been picked up yet.
Wow.
And it almost looks like you're going through a war zone.
Yeah. Belleville is close to the river. Yeah.
And I mean, it was shocking because
that is such a safe river.
And that's a beautiful street. But we were going down that street and we were completely shocked, man. We were like, whoa, what is going on?
I remember that's 2 Seton Hall students lost their life. The water from the Passaic River came up so quick, and it just their car was just engulfed with water. So, and that was over in that area, I believe. And I think they didn't find their bodies until like a week later.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. But here's the other thing, right? Usually when we get those kind of storms, I should say, nobody really had expected this kind of storm. But usually when we get major rains, people don't really listen. right? When you tell them not to drive through stuff, and when it's dark, it's hard for you to determine or tell how deep the water really is, you know? And then once you start driving and you realize, I mean, this stuff is over your car. I mean, just absolutely incredible.
And once you start flooding, you can't back up.
No, I mean, once you in it, you in it.
You in it, and that stuff just starts rising right with you in that vehicle. And if you don't know how to get out of that vehicle, you're in trouble.
And Orange Park was flooded Orange Park has areas that flood, but the whole park was flooded from Hickory Street all the way to Oakwood Avenue. So I had gotten all the way home and my car literally was almost underwater right by Orange Park. And I'm in the truck and it was almost underwater. So, yeah.
So wait, when you were driving back, your truck was almost flooded?
Right by Orange Park. Yeah, I had gotten all the way home and I was on the side of Orange Park. Sorry about that. And I was going, like Ed just said, you can't see. So I was like, "Ooh, I'm home. Let me just drive down." And as I drove, my car went deeper and deeper. The water was up to the base of my car.
But you didn't.
And you have a big truck.
Yes, exactly.
Like you have a big truck that's high off the ground.
Exactly. I have the Chevy Traverse, right.
So if my little car just going chilling, my car would have been done.
Yeah. And again, in Orange, there were cars. And it was just amazing that night because I remember, I got to the parkway. I can get on the parkway. And then they were leading people off the parkway because the parkway between 148 and maybe 143 had flooded right there. Wow. So it was.
That's 5 exits.
Yeah, that was different. This storm was something, No,
the thing that I'm trying to figure out also is the reason why we flooded so much all over simply because our infrastructure is backed up. What like all the places that should lay out water, were they clogged? Were they full, or were they just overwhelmed?
All of the above, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was too much too soon.
Save these hard questions for the experts we got coming on.
Right, exactly.
But it's heavy stuff. It's heavy stuff. It's got to be talked about, and it's a space that we need to be more informed about and more organized about. No doubt.
What's the area in Newark that people just go through down by coming out from the airport that always floods? People always try to.
Well, the river's right there. By Weekway Park, over by Elizabeth Ave, Beaker. Oh, it always floods heavy over there.
But you always hear people, they have to cut that area off. Don't travel in that area. As Ed said, people don't listen and they go. And this time, because people tend to think people think they can make it through because they made it through last time, but this time was really different.
I don't think anyone expected that much water, and no one really expected the rain to rise that high. I think that was shocking for everyone. I mean, I remember, looking at it, and one of the things I was saying is that, whoa, this is some real historic stuff going on right now. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we got that much rain so fast and at one time, right, which was just incredible.
I'm sure when Maria comes on, she's going to talk about the amount of rain because we've had storm after storm after storm, and that's so the ground hasn't had the opportunity to dry out. It's been a constant flow of storms, so that's another thing to complicate the situation.
Yeah. I mean,
listen to this though. Now we had Crystal Sibley on last week. Now, folks may not realize it. That's my first niece, right? They live down in Burlington. Just 3 blocks from them is where that tornado touched down, right? And that, Jersey, can have some tornadoes, but that's not a regular occurrence. And that just destroyed the whole area like in a few seconds, right?
And that was a tornado that looked like it was in Oklahoma somewhere.
South Jersey. Mm-hmm.
It looked like it was in Oklahoma. The base of that tornado was so big. Yeah.
So these environmental irregularities, so they may be dismissed by corporate media, are really, Earth Mother rebelling against being mistreated. She's trying to train the humanity in how to treat her. you know. And it's not all of
Well,
humanity that's doing the abuse. It's a certain segment of humanity, right, that believes that they don't have to be accountable because they got a whole lot of money and they own a lot of stuff. We need to
well,
fix
I
it.
like what Governor Hochul said. It's not the storm. It's not the 100-year storm. It's last week's storm. We need to pay attention, and we need to be mindful of the community and where people are living in our community and how it's affecting our community, and how the lack of legislation is. It was very serious, this time. People dying in their basement, their home, thinking they're safe from a storm, and they died right in their living quarters. So that's hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Imagine that. I heard one woman say, uh, you know, I forget where it was, but I heard her say that, had one of her tenants who lived in the basement, and it had flooded so fast that when she called her, by the time she got down there, the water was already up to the window, and her blind son had to come in and save her, pushed her out of the
Mm,
basement window, right? And that's how she got out of there. Otherwise, she would have drowned
mm.
in her own basement. You know, I mean, just absolutely
Wow.
incredible in terms of the way that storm was moving.
Wow. And these are stories that are not, being aired,
Yeah,
in places where they need to be aired, unfortunately. And that's again, that's a point of challenge for all of us. You
yeah,
know, we have
yeah,
to make sure that we are, we need to make the most out of vehicles like this. This is one of our drums. We have to really use these drums, all those other places that have or trying to create spaces like this. We have to use them for real things. There's more to using virtual space than entertainment.
yeah. And the other thing is remember, Zaid, Newark is not really prepared to deal with storms like that or with weather like that. You know what I mean? Just
Just out
because
in
it's
New Orleans.
blacktop, right? It's
Yeah,
basically
right,
blacktop. It's not really prepared to handle that kind of water. You
right,
know.
right,
And
right.
so that was bound to happen just based on the way it was set up. To
Mhm.
get that much rain, and then all of a sudden we don't have those kind of drainage systems to be able to get rid of that kind of water. And you also got to remember, if you getting that much water on your roof and those drains on top of your house can't handle that water that fast, where's the water gonna go?
Stress It'll go right into your house.
Go right into the house, right? And
Yeah,
then, particularly and a lot of people need work on their roofs, and so if you get all of that water on top of your roof, what do you think is going to happen to your roof? It's going to cave
yeah.
in.
Flat roofs are
And,
obsolete.
and that's sort of the same problem too. If we get too much snow at one time, right? You get all that weight on top of your roof,
Impacts.
and
Yep.
your roof is bound to cave in because it's just really just too much weight. So I mean, when we talking about the infrastructure, we're talking about this system. Just I mean, unfortunately, they playing with the weather and all of that. And then remember, you got 4 civilians, up in space right now. When you going up in space and all of that, we don't know what that's doing in terms of messing with the weather system. We don't know.
We sure don't. We
You
sure
know,
don't. I do know that we're gonna turn it up on this guy trying to play. I don't know what game he's trying to play, but we're looking at the money that he's getting from these corporate donors.
right?
We're gonna play this Josh Gottenheim of his. Ain't nobody voting for you to block resources that are needed throughout the state to deal with questions like this in terms of infrastructure,
Right.
infrastructure repair, infrastructure modernization, right? Putting people to work in the process, restabilizing the community, all of that. Get out of the way, Josh,
Right.
right?
And
Ain't
with the
got
things
enough
that are
Jenkins and all of these other backwards people. Get out of the way. Ain't nobody vote for that mess.
and we absolutely know the things that are causing climate change, and some of the things in the infrastructure bill, the larger one, are directly trying to deal with that. And you're talking about these 100-year storms that are weak storms. People are just ignoring it, right? Like we know that we need to find alternative sources of energy. We know we need to invest in alternative sources of energy. Like, we know what's causing it. We know what's doing it. And the infrastructure bill attempts to start to try to deal with it. And it's unthinkable that even Democratic politicians are like, but nah, but no, but wait. Because you're like, well, what are you doing?
That's too much. Too much for who?
Right. And if we were talking about killing people, it wouldn't be too much. And we know that. If we were talking about going back to war in Afghanistan, many of these people would be like, okay, we spent over $1 trillion there. We put that in climate change. We put that in healthcare. We put that in any of the things that we actually need for people to live. Then, it's too much. But if we put it into killing people, we put it in the bombs, then it's all good.
But we're supposed to be coming out of Afghanistan now. That should free up some money, you'd think, right, fella?
Right, and at the same time, right, and there's this big story out today that the bombs that were supposed to quote kill terrorists killed a bunch of kids, and in the same page they're talking about but the women's rights in Afghanistan, and I'm like, how is the United States as we're spending trillions of dollars to protect people. We know we're killing kids. We know that we're making all these mistakes and blowing people up, but yet we're supposed to be there to protect rights, even though we're not doing basic things at home. Like basic things at home, or dealing with the problems that we absolutely know are going to are happening now.
People do not realize, and that's why I miss Malcolm, right? People do not realize how much credibility that this government that's supposed to be responsible to all of us has lost in the last 40 years. And I'm being modest. I can further say more than 40 years, but certainly the last 40 years with the acceleration of the corporatization agenda of things budgetary, of things financial, of things military, of matters of development. Right?
Zaid, welcome, Mayor. How are you?
Let's get back. Let's get it in. Get our work in with Mayor Baraka.
Absolutely. How are you? Welcome. Are you on? Are you there?
He's not. I don't know if he's hearing us.
I don't think you might not be able to hear us right now. So, hello?
Is he muted, John?
No, he's not. He's not in anymore.
I think he took himself out. He's going to try and come back in.
Yeah, he's going to try to come back in. Hey, Mr. Randall, how are you?
I'm doing great. I heard y'all singing the praises of the Biden administration.
Wow.
I heard y'all doing good. I know your girl Kamala's in there holding it down, right?
Well, actually, we were talking about the Biden administration actually doing the right thing with what's pushing the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, and other Democrats holding it back. So we were actually, it's not the story you expected, actually.
It's not. I thought you was talking about dead children. No, sorry. No.
We're talking about yes, Biden was like, Afghanistan, bye, we're out. No more.
Hey, listen, man.
Other Democrats are like, let's go back.
They're talking about let's drone Afghanistan.
Right.
Pull the troops out, but we still
Baba Zaid,
make this money.
Baba Zaid, I really appreciate that op-ed you wrote in the Star Ledger about the George Floyd Act that got passed.
I wrote an op-ed. The Star Ledger did an op-ed that I wrote.
No, he's being sarcastic.
Got me on a whiteout list.
Yes, he's being sarcastic. Obviously being real sarcastic. Mayor Baraka, are you there?
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, thank you. And welcome, man.
What's going on?
Peace, man.
Peace.
We were going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, all type of stuff.
Yeah, we bet. We can imagine, as the saying goes.
So this is always the mayor's forum, and we love to get in conversations, but we always want to start off with what's going on? What do you want to talk about? Because we always have the good conversation going on after that.
Yeah, I missed what y'all was talking. I heard a little George Floyd Act in there, but I read Zaid's article too, by the way.
Yeah, it's great, man. I can't.
Well, I need to find what y'all read.
Pulpit got used. Finally got used for something we needed.
Let me go find this. I have been on a
No.
whiteout with the Ledger for years. So I got to find this one.
I just came from. I'm sorry, Blake. I was talking to a couple of the guys from some of the Black and Latino police officers and firefighters about just the whole vaccine and the rally that they had. Those guys brought, not them, but guys brought people in from all over the state. Ridiculous. They had impeach Biden signs, and your freedom is because of our freedom. And so it wasn't really about that. It got to be about, something other than that, Yeah,
that was terrible. And that rally, let me say something from the door, right? That rally did not look like Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, not at all. That wasn't who was there.
New Jersey.
Right.
It might have been led by the police union from Newark, but that rally did not look like Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah. Now,
you need to say that from the door.
Some of them people that was out there was out at the Capitol when they raided the Capitol. Some of those
look more like that.
Yeah.
Wow. For real.
100%.
We're getting ready for something else Saturday.
100%.
Wow. So when you're talking about we need Newark police officers that reflect our community, you're not really joking around, right? Like the people who were they were marching on the Capitol on January 6th.
It was mostly fire guys. Some police officers were there, but it was mostly fire.
Wow.
The fire department is still predominantly white in Newark.
Okay.
Still.
And one of the reasons why the residency requirement is being fought so hard.
Yeah, still predominantly. We were able to do magical work in the police side, but the fire side is still the way it's always been, for the most part. We got more black and brown folks, but it's still majority white and a majority African American. Got over 50% African Americans and over 46, 47% Latinos in the city, and the fire department is majority white.
Wow.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. I almost became a firefighter for Plainfield. Right? It's a long time ago. And I'm saying that to say, and I hope all brothers who are listening to this, who not necessarily want to go to college and all that, that is good damn work.
Yeah.
Right. It's a whole lot. Now of course there has been some white strangleholds on some of these civil service type jobs in
That's right.
a number of cities throughout this country. That's a part of that history. But in those communities where we live and all the majority, our fire department should look like that, right?
Yeah.
Just next door, I'm actually live in East Orange for the moment. East Orange's fire department looks like East Orange.
Right. Well, East Orange is like probably one of the last majority, overwhelmingly African American cities in the country.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. They're like almost about 80% or more African American.
Yeah. That's right.
That would be a complete travesty if East Orange was like that.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But
that was my Plainfield. Plainfield's fire department looks like Plainfield.
That's good.
I was trying to get on.
We have work to do here, man, and we have to recruit some folks and do what's necessary. Then you had, because folks around here are apolitical, our folks who, we just have to be clear, our folks who call themselves activists, white supremacists are activists too,
Yes, they are.
At the end of
the day, tomorrow, Washington, D.C.
Yeah. All of them people who was in D.C. considered themselves activists.
Fair. Now, when
so at the end of the day, some people went down there with those folks because they have no real analysis, right? It just makes no sense that you're down there with people who, rub elbows with white supremacists who hang out at the Capitol, running in the White House to stop votes from our community.
Right.
By the way, so just makes no sense at all. But
when you're looking at the stranglehold, and I know you did a lot of work on the docks in terms of jobs and trying to break that stranglehold and trying to get more people in Newark who look like Newark those jobs.
They just hired another batch. Like just a couple of weeks ago, they just brought a whole nother batch of us on down there at the port. So
how does that maintain itself in the fire department? And what are the things that you've done, like in these other places, like at the pier? Like it clearly is not magic, but the pier started to make some changes. The police department started to make some changes. What happened?
Well, ultimately, the stuff has to happen internally. Like we put pressure on from the outside, but internally, like as Aid alluded to, like civil service, people got to take those tests. That's number one.
Yeah.
People have to take the tests.
Yeah.
We have to get them through. We have to put, we put the right people on the committees that have to make a recommendation whether these people become cops or firemen, and then we have to train these people and get them ready to pass these tests. The fire department is probably worse than police in terms of like the generational amount, like the people who are in it, their fathers and grandfathers, it just passed down from generation to generation. Right. And then we have this. That's why the residency requirement that we're fighting for in the state is so crucial, because, what folks do is they come and get an address in the city, and you got 6 people living in an apartment for 5 or 6 months, to be able to meet the requirement of the 1-year residency. And part of that year also includes while you're in the academy. So you're basically in the academy while you're living in that apartment. So most of your time is spent at the academy and not in that apartment that you have. And once that's finished, you basically have a very, very short period of time. Then you can go back where you came from. Then you clear the apartment out, right, and go back to the town that you're from. And that's what happens, And you got Newark born and raised folks who can't get that. Or if I was born and raised in Newark and say I decided to move across the street, I lived in Bellsburg, now I live in East Orange, right? I can't even apply. I got to do what those guys do, find me an apartment, stay in that apartment for a brief period of time, and then wait till I pass the academy and go back to where I came from. That's why we need a law that allows us, that prohibits that and allows forces people to live in the city at least for a specific period of time. So after you finish the academy, you have to live in the city for at least 5 years.
And there's been fierce resistance to that.
Oh, absolutely. Because the job, the idea is to just get the money and the benefits, not to take part in the actual community in the neighborhood. Like I don't want to live there, but I want to get the money is good. The benefits are great, excellent. The pension is outstanding. You retire at an age. Look, if you're a fire guy, you could get another job while you're a fireman. A lot of fire guys have multiple jobs. Because they work in the firehouse for 2 days. You have to spend overnight there. It's like 2 days on, 3 days off, whatever, something like that. And you get a part-time job doing something else. Whether you're doing construction or if you're doing this, you might be driving, whatever it is. But you can do that if you have the ability to. Like if you have the time and space, you can do that. So many of them have that, right? So it's an excellent, and I'm not speaking against that. I'm just saying it's an excellent opportunity for people.
Yeah, something that a lot of us sleep on. Absolutely.
And we should really be, even like a lot of these athletes who, they're not going to the pros, they're not doing whatever. They should really get involved in that. Like, start taking these fire tests, fire exams. It's a great job to have.
But that's
crazy. Yeah.
But that's why they make it generational, man. The fact is that, they put their kids in it, their grandchildren in it, and a lot of them are working at the same time that their fathers or uncles are working, right? So you'll have, 3 or 4 different members of a family working in the fire department, right? They'll say, oh, my uncle's the captain, or, my nephew is working. And it just, goes down the whole line. The problem is that, I don't see us doing that. I know that the brother in New York who's in charge of the Vulcan Society, I know that, he's always trying to recruit young Black people, to consider the fire department. But, we I just think that, the brothers and sisters who are on that job have got to do more to try and educate brothers and sisters, because some sisters want to do it too. But, educate our community, about that job.
Yeah, and we have the Vulcans in Newark too, and they're working, to try to do some of that stuff. We just have to be more committed. A lot of times we just think about we get it, and we're not really thinking about a collective process of bringing people on behind us, and we just have to do that. Like we must, like and then when you get in there, you complaining about how people are treating you. That's why you need a system to get other people in there to be with you.
That's right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, you just have to.
It's our organization. The previous chair of the Vulcans in New York was one of my former students, and his father was a firefighter. So we could do a generational thing and take care of each other too.
Yeah,
and we doors open.
And we should.
Yeah,
that's what they do. They did it. They did it at the port. They do it in fire. They do it police. They do it everywhere. I mean, all of those jobs that are decent. They become careers. We need to grab our people and say, look, we could do this as well.
That's right. And that speaks to, man, what you said maybe a month or two ago on the show when you were saying that, all the other jobs that are available in the city that we don't even consider, everybody consider the city council and the mayor's position, but all these other electoral jobs, we just let them go by. And these people are running or applying for those jobs that are great jobs with great salaries and benefits, and we don't even consider them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not in our thought process. It's not being presented to us, so we don't even. Right. Sometimes we don't even know they exist.
Exactly.
And it's we have to make sure we inform people about the stuff that's going on, so we can be able to empower ourselves in our community at the same time. Man, we just have to. It's right now more than ever. We do need to be fighting for democracy and inclusion and all this other kind of stuff that people are talking about, but we also need self-determination.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We need that. We have to be self-determining people. We can't, it's like I fight with people at City Hall who are their intentions are good mentally. Like they say, oh, we need to make it equal. We need an equal process. No, we don't need an equal process because an equal process still discriminates against me.
Right.
Right, you understand? We need a
process. And can you break that down? Because people are still using colorblindness and this quote equal process as
they ain't colorblind when they stop at the red light. But at the end of the day, like people are trying to create boilerplates here, and I get it. Like we want to create a boilerplate. We don't want to give nobody an advantage, but the problem is already done. Somebody already has an advantage.
Yes,
right.
They've had an advantage for hundreds of years. People have an advantage. How do you break up that advantage? How do you give people an opportunity to create a space of equity? Our job is to create spaces of equity. That's why people are pushing back. People are pushing back against that because when you try to create equity, it's hard. For example, we want to rename Columbus, Washington Park, Harriet Tubman Square. We're probably the first city in the country that took down a statue, but now is replacing it with something, right?
Right.
So now you're getting all of the pushback from all the historians. Historians all over the state have been writing me, sending me stuff, saying why it's necessary to keep Washington in the name of the park because the history that Washington had in the fight and the crossing of Delaware and saying.
So let's get a monument with Washington with 300 slaves.
Yeah, he also had slaves. Right now, you could tell them that, or I could tell them that, Zaid. But at the end of the day, they bypass all of that and they tell you the history of it. And what I'm finding out is that this is a fight that's happening all over the country where people are taking down statues. Their pushback is so great that these people are having because they feel like they're being slighted. When you start saying we need Harriet Tubman and we need to name it Harriet Tubman, don't you got enough stuff? Right? This is our community now. We want to name it after our heroes, and
that's self-determination.
Yeah, that's what self-determination is. Right. We have the right to do that.
Right?
We have the right to do that. We have the right to name our own stuff. Right. When you were here, you named it.
Now, Mayor Baraka. Now a rising tide lifts all boats. Now
that's right.
You know that.
We was always in the same boat, brother. We was just at the bottom.
Oh, my bad. My bad. That's a common quote. I was looking at the wrong politician. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we was people always say we in the same boat. We was always in the same boat.
But
We was at the bottom. We was the ones chained.
You know what I thought was interesting, man, Baraka? I watched you the other day, and you were dedicating the monument to Ken Gibson. And I remember a few years ago when we were in the studio, there was a picture. We were talking about a picture of you. Your dad was holding you, and you were being introduced to Ken Gibson. How'd that feel?
Ken Gibson was actually holding me.
Yeah,
right. I know the picture.
And yeah, to see that is like almost spooky, right? that happened then, and here we are now, and I'm dedicating a statue to him. You know, because we can do that.
That's self-determination.
Because we can do that, and that'll be there as long as we are here. It'll be there, and we can do that, and that's what we should be doing.
Right.
That's what we should be doing. That's self-determining. That's what they did, right? They have statues everywhere, monuments, pictures, paintings, street signs.
I mean, in Baltimore, we got a William Wallace statue in Baltimore. Somebody explain that.
William Wallace. William Wallace.
Listen.
William Wallace or William Walker? What was the name again?
William Wallace.
Okay, I'm thinking William Walker. I'm sorry. Yeah. I got another name in mind. My mind.
I mean, and you think about Baltimore has no connection to any of the history that's connected to William Wallace, right? But again,
they can do that though.
That's right. They in charge.
We don't have no slavery monument downtown. Though, I'll tell you that. Where all the ship, where we all came in at on the port. We don't have none of that. But
speaking of which, Perth Amboy, major slave port, is erecting a monument, right, for our ancestors who came into Perth Amboy on the 29th.
That's nice.
At 10 a.m.
Wow.
They'll be there. In fact, in New Jersey,
that's a good one.
Supposed to be a part of that program, right? That's long overdue. Perth Amboy is no longer does not have the a sizable African American population anymore. But there's an oddity that, and I never really realized it until I really took stock of that particular space, right? And I have somebody that's very close to me in that space. Is that there's a black church sitting right off that port, right? Wow. Bishop, I can't call his name now, right? But a hugely popular church, and our folks are coming from New York, Philadelphia. They're coming from everywhere into this church, and I'm like, how's he pulling all of this energy? Go to that port at night. You'll see why he's pulling all that energy. Because our ancestors,
that's right.
They're making themselves present the way ancestors do.
That's serious. That's serious.
It's some heavy stuff. So that's something that's we're getting right somewhere in New Jersey, right? And even though we're not, like I said, not a majority population, I respect the sensitivity of the town to initiate that. So I just
Bishop Hilliard, someone just
that's right. Bishop Principal Kafele just chimed in. Bishop Hilliard, that's right. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
You know what I learned when I went to
that's very close to him.
In one of my many trips to Ghana, I went to one of the slave castles, the quarters there at Cape Coast, and the guy was telling the story, and I looked it up. Most of the hurricanes that find their way to America, they begin right there at the foot of those slave quarters, right at the Gulf of Guinea, they call it, right there.
That's right. The Guinea current.
The heat from northern Africa gets mixed up in that water, and the beginning of those hurricanes start there and just smash against the Caribbean and the United States.
Marcus Garvey was not talking caca when he was talking about the whirlwind.
Catch me in the whirlwind.
The path of those hurricanes are the pathway of those slave ships.
Man, make it plain. Make it plain.
That is that right there, brother. I don't know what you believe in, but that's something.
Can you break that? Can you break that down for us? When you're like the path of the hurricanes is the path of the slave ships.
Yeah, well, the same voyage that the ships took to get here. I mean, that's common sense. The same, the hurricane came from there all the way to where we at now. It's just following that same pathway.
Don't worry, man, Baraka. Nobody ever showed Jonathan Austin anything like that before. He's never heard it before.
No, that's the teacher seizing the teachable moment. That's
that right there.
Chris Randall's always talking about we work together in coaching, and he's and we're always talking about all these things. But yeah, that was teachable moment. Teachable moment.
The Gulf of Guinea, man. The heat right there just smacks against us all, and that's. I think that's that's serious. That's ancestors like he was saying. Yelling and screaming, and we getting hit and still ain't woke.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
we got somebody coming on behind you to try and help lift that up.
We're talking about that.
Yeah. We were actually in that conversation before you came on, man. We were talking about, the storm we just had a week or 2 weeks ago, and what that looked like. Not only here locally, but what that looked like, for folks all throughout the state. No one was prepared for that much water. And particularly when we talk about our city, Newark being a blacktop, I mean, it was just totally, unexpected.
Yeah. And that hurricane traveled on land.
Right.
So that's what people missing. We missing that. Like hurricanes travel on water, right? And they fall on the land. They don't travel on the land. And that right there is something different. Right, it's some other stuff that's happening here, man, and it just seems to be getting worse. And the resiliency of these cities, like all of the issues and problems that this country and all these places have, are going to be the death of it.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's the major point, right? Because I think a lot of us were thinking this came through, Louisiana. This has been traveling up from the south.
Right.
By the time it gets to us, it's a storm. We're used to that. We're used to a lot of rain. We didn't know what was coming.
Right. Nobody knew they was getting a tornado.
Right.
That's because we like to ignore
my family. 3 blocks.
We like to ignore things like Sojourner Truth being owned by the first president of Rutgers University. We like to ignore that. We think that we missing the hurricane gonna miss us. No, sir.
Yeah.
That's true. Sojourner Truth.
Listen.
That's true.
The history of Rutgers is rough, brother. So
in New Brunswick, there is a dormitory named after Sojourner Truth because she was owned by the first president of Rutgers University. That's documented.
That's right.
So if the ancestors is coming in a hurricane, you got to get everybody responsible. Malcolm X told you if you south of Canada, you south.
You go. It's coming for you.
It's coming for you.
Yeah. I mean, all of the folks that, whether you're talking about Rutgers or Princeton and all these places, that their history is long and terrible.
Or Georgetown.
That's right.
Long and terrible.
Listen.
Yeah.
There's I put something in the chat about Forbes magazine actually published a story about the hurricanes and slavery. You know what I'm saying? But
did they?
Yeah, of course they did.
Right here.
If you want to hide something from one of us, you got to put it somewhere.
Wow. I want to read that.
Yeah, I make sure I just put in the link to the chat. I think you should be able to see it, Mayor. But one of the things that I think is the most profound, I think, and Mayor Baraka, I get in trouble for this too all the time, is in participating in local elections, since I've been living in Newark, it felt like that vote mattered. And in a lot of ways, I think when I look at the national thing, I now understand why John Calhoun was so serious about states' rights.
For sure.
And I didn't understand. And again, it's one of those things about self-determination I didn't quite understand, right? It's a different thing when you're walking around in Newark and you're at the 24 hours of peace like I was. Me and you spoke when we were there. And it's just a different feeling around law enforcement in this city than it is walking around in certain other places.
Oh, indeed.
It's a whole different thing, right? I found that out. Baba Zaid taught me that lesson the wrong way, but it's okay.
But that's really because of the leadership, though, brother.
Exactly.
Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that participation in the political process that I experienced in participating in local elections beginning when you were running in your first term changed the way I saw politics. And I haven't really participated in a lot of national elections, and I've been getting in trouble for that, even on the show. Because I don't know, I didn't know if there was an upgrade between the fascists and the segregationists, and I didn't know that there was an upgrade. I really man, Baraka, it's my bad. Maybe I read too many of those Mary Baraka poems or something, and maybe I was expecting something a little different, But when the proto segregationist is over here and he's sleeping the meeting, and our good senator in South Carolina, turned us over. Maybe I missed it. And maybe Baraka, if I'm wrong, just help me out, because
I think you're right. But the point is, like my father used to say, we gotta at least have people we can fight with, right? Mm. Some people you can't even get to because they're just not gonna let you in the room. And some people, you just have to realize that whoever you put in there, you're gonna have a fight. You're not electing people that you're not gonna fight, right? You putting the people in there who you think that you can fight with, and at least get a small victory out of. I think Angela Davis was trying to point it out the same way when she was talking about it. Look, my father was a communist, right? But he also was a member of the Democratic Party, right? He had a card. He was a card-carrying member of the Democratic Party, but he was also a communist. So, like, it feels like a contradiction.
He wanted to talk us about self-determination too.
Right? He understands where he is, right? And what he needs to do to get to the place he wants to be theoretically in his mind. The steps that he needs to take, and he thinks that he needs to take. And he's a Democrat because that's what the society is, and he has a right to be in a Democratic Party based on the policies of this country. And because he's self-determining, he has the right to say, I want to be also a member of the Communist Party. So
that's right.
This is, and though he wasn't, he did those things, and to like lay people to feel like a contradiction, but ultimately, like if you're in a place, you fight with the weapons that you have. Right. And I've always, looked at that, and it was instructive to me. And some things I'm still like, trying to figure out and trying to learn, like just, stuff that he did, stuff that my mother does, so forth and so on. And while, and even some of the stuff that they do, like, or did, I'm not doing all of that. And I might not be there where they were all the way, but at the end of the day, I understand the dichotomy of it, because we're still where we are, right? We're in America, and you're still in this country, and you have tools.
Still an empire. That's right.
You have to fight with the tools that they give you until we get to a place where other tools can work, right? Or
so
in a fight, you go into a gunfight with a knife.
Right.
So really, you're like, we need a multiplicity of strategies working at the same time.
Sure, but you just have to know where you are. Like, sometimes we forget where we are. Like, we think we're somewhere else that we're not, and we do things and say things and push things that's not going to happen here, because even the people you're trying to get to be with you won't be with you. Right? Because they're just not where you are.
Right.
That's right.
They're not where you are.
Objective conditions.
So you
I
have
struggle
to.
with my young lefties
That's
on that
right.
all the time. You got to be able to, assess your objective conditions.
They're not where you are. You go in a place and get yourself hurt.
That's right.
You go somewhere and get yourself hurt, like, because you think you're doing something that's helping people. They look at you as the enemy, right? And so you have to, and then you get upset and isolated, because the point is to get you isolated. Once you isolate yourself, it's easy for people to take you out, because nobody's going to come to your defense.
Right.
And so it's important to, you can't want people to organize with you if you're not organizing with them. And that's important. Like, we have to, and I learned that just running in political office. Like, there's things that you think should happen, that's your priority in your mind, that you want to make happen. And you get there, and you be like, I want to make these things happen. But those are not the people's priority. They want something else to happen that they're focused on, because it'll make their individual lives better. You way up here 5 steps trying to do something else, and you're not there, right? But you have to be there trying to get those things done for them. And then at the same time, showing them the relationship between the things that you want to accomplish and the things that they want to accomplish and how they're similar. Or else you're just running in circles.
Ooh.
You running in circles.
That's right.
There are a lot of people who are smart, who got the right line, they smart, and they think that they should be elected because they have the right line and they're smart. But that's not, if people elected people because they had the right line and they're smart, some of these problems we're dealing with, we won't have to deal with. That's not why people are getting elected. And we have to remember that. Like, people are getting in office and these things are happening. People joined the Democratic Party. They left the Republican Party and joined the Democratic Party. Our people did that, right? They left. You're talking about the Democrats who were Dixiecrats right before that. They left the Republican Party, who was the party who fought for radical Reconstruction, that the party that gave us Hiram rebels, that gave us, the first African-American senators, and gave us the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment. Black people left that party and went to the Democratic Party in droves because of the leadership and because the Republican Party began focusing on the economy and started getting away from the fight for civil rights and start talking about the economy. Same thing the Democrats are doing now. The economy, and got away from civil rights. So voting rights become the third thing that they're fighting for. And the first thing is the economy. The Democrats began picking up the mantle with FDR and all these other folks, began to start talking about including people in it. Civil rights, segregation, all of this stuff, fighting against that. So the Dixiecrats in the Democratic Party left. They left the Democratic Party, right? And now, we're witnessing almost some of the same things happen right before our very eyes with what's happening right now. They want to focus on the economy and COVID and all this other stuff, which is right, but you can't leave out voting rights.
That's right. That's right.
You can't leave out voting rights. You can't leave out reparations. You can't leave out all this stuff. You can't get a bunch of Black women to vote for you to get you in office, but you do not speak about the issues, their tabletop or kitchen table issues that affect their lives every single day.
That's
maternity health care, abortion, voting rights, the things that affect them, right? The police brutality. You got to have to address it.
Right.
Or else you're going to get a drove of people that leave.
That's right.
Man, Baraka, I had this question. You seem to, I know you, I've been aware of you for a long time. And I know that you were an educator first and still are an educator and then moved into politics. How do you, I guess it's almost, I hate to use the religious rhetoric, but help my unbelief, because in certain situations it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to it's hard for me to co-sign certain things. And I get it. And again, I get it all the time, particularly on this show with people who
y'all.
Yeah, I do get it all the time on the show about that. And I just kind of wonder what do you say to people who, because to me it's like I knew that every time I come on the show, I go, oh, so what's up with the pearls and the chucks and I thought we was gonna get this crime. We had one thing that we wanted. We had one piece of legislation that we wanted.
It didn't happen.
We had a reason that this person was the Democratic nominee. We had a reason that he was taking an L in South Carolina, and then our good uncle just took him by the hand, picked him up, patted him on the back, got all the dirt off of him, and walked him right to the White House, and we got none of that. So.
Right.
How do we
we gotta fight? And so, like I said, there's not a time when you don't have to fight. It's just a different fight. Like you wouldn't even be able to have a conversation with Donald Trump about any of those issues.
That's right.
It wouldn't affect him in any kind of way. He doesn't need it. As a matter of fact, he's diametrically opposed to it, and everybody around him is, right? And that's what he was pushing. At least you got somebody who had the chink in their armor is the fact that they say that they agree with the things that you're saying. And so we fight, we push, and we fight to force them to do that. So you have to put pressure on people. You can't we're not just electing people and going about our business. Like, we have to put pressure on these guys to make their word their bond, to finish, the things that we ask for. We can't walk away. Like, we have to be in their face. We have to demand and we have to be organized, right? We can't just mobilize to vote, mobilize for rallies. We have to be in organizations that have consistent pressure on these people all of the time. We're prepared to do that in New Jersey because the Republicans are not our problem in New Jersey. The Democrats are. So, and so when you get Republicans in New Jersey, you know, for the most part, they already know they persona non grata and they behave a certain and specific kind of way. So we get the little bit we can get out of them. The problem is we have Democrats everywhere, and we still can't get what we want because we're just not organized to put the right pressure on them the way we put pressure on them. We have to put the right pressure on them in the right places to get the things that we want. And part of that begins with our first unity with each other. We can't even be unified long enough. It's easy for them to pick us apart. We can't be unified long enough to have a list of things that we agree on to fight for. And we have to be sophisticated enough, and I talk about this all the time, like the Gary Convention, sophisticated enough to know we going to come in the room and we just not going to agree on all of the items. There's going to be 10 items. We're going to agree on 5 or 6 of them. The other 4, we're going to fight like cats and dogs. But we can't walk away because of those 4.
That's right. That's right.
We have to stay and fight with each other. And the 6 things we agree upon, we at least need to make them things happen. Damn. We can't get one of the 6 that we all agree on to happen.
Right.
We all can agree on one thing. We can't get that one thing to happen because we're so busy fighting about the 4 things.
That's right.
And therein lies the problem. People know this, right? They know this. So they perpetuate and facilitate our differences about those 4 things when we won't even get the one of the 6 that we do agree upon, right? When really the people you're talking to don't want you to have any of it.
Right.
And that's how sophisticated we have to become. Like, look, we ain't going to agree on these 4 things. We're going to fight about them. We can fight about them tomorrow. But today, please let us get at least 2 of the 6 that we do agree upon. Let's put a strategy together to get 2 of these 6 things, right? And maybe you can convince me one way or another about the 4. Right now, let's concentrate on these.
Right.
And let's get this stuff accomplished, right?
Right.
Get it accomplished. Whether it's a civilian review board, whether it's reparations, whether it's money for college, for whatever it is, whether it's more employment in our communities, whether it's more housing in our neighborhood. There are things that we do agree upon and that we can agree upon.
Right.
There are things we can agree upon 100%. Even the some of the backward among us, we can agree upon some of those things. Like some of the apolitical, there's some things we definitely we can agree upon. Like we can't even get the George Floyd and Policing Act passed, or the voting or John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. Those are liberal legislation. That's liberal legislation. It's not even radical. That's liberal legislation. We can't even get those things passed.
Right. It's also a corrective measure to correct some of the things that have been done legislatively. But Mayor, I want to ask you this before we got to go. Are you aware of what's going on underneath the Del Rio International Bridge in Del Rio, Texas? Have you heard about that?
No, sir.
With all those Haitians that are underneath the bridge that are being held up, that came through Mexico trying to leave what happened down in Haiti, and they got almost 10,000 brothers and sisters.
I didn't read it yet. Somebody just sent me something on that.
Yeah. So they're holding up about 10,000 black folks, women, children, babies. They walked through the Del Rio River, man, coming from Mexico, went through Mexico to try to get to Texas, and now they've been held up and getting processed. So now you've got all of these white Republicans who are trying to turn them back so that they don't get processed, right, into the United States. These are black Haitians, man, and I don't hear nobody talking about it, right? I'm hearing a few people talk about it. I heard ABC mention it, but brother, I mean, there's some live. John posting that now. There's some live video out there, man, of them brothers and sisters who are completely terrified. Right? They not only they're trying to get away from the hurricane, but you remember we talked about even some of the violence that is going on in Haiti
and rape and all of that. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that we've got to sound that drum so that these people get a fair opportunity. These are our family members, brother, and we've got to make sure that they get a fair hearing. I mean, we already said we know things ain't fair and equal in America. We know that,
and that's one of those things that right now the United States federal government under Biden has absolute power to deal with. To mention like Kamala Harris is in charge of dealing with this stuff at the border.
And America is not racist. That's what she said, right?
But I'm talking about, yes, I got you. But it's one of those things that we got that when you're talking about the pressure, it's more likely who's more likely to going to deal with this situation.
Well, you know what it is. Kamala Harris, as an Asian American, felt compelled to push that anti-Asian hate bill, and she was all teeth and smiling and clapping and all of that when that went down because that was something that affected her community. Just saying.
I think she would be. I think she would be do the same if the George Floyd bill passed. And I've heard her speak about it. And I heard her speak about the John Lewis bill as well. So I've heard her speak about those things. That's really the Congress. They have to get that passed. And ultimately, you're right. The president has to be more vocal on it, and he has not been. Right, he has not been vocal on it, and he needs to be. And he needs to be called out for it and put pressure on him. But it's really him, right? He's in charge.
And the midterm elections are going to go so far right.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be so belligerent in a minute. Oh my goodness! I hope we got some wind control policies in place, man, in Newark, because everybody gonna be trying to run up. They're gonna be trying to run, boy. It's gonna be the Harrison Bridge and the Del Rio Bridge gonna be looking exactly the same. Everybody gonna be trying to come down here, boy, because it's gonna be so right. In the mid, it's going to be so wrong.
I agree with you. I mean, they've already passed these voting rights laws in these states to set the stage for that, to just stop people from voting. Period. And that's why, on a national level, that they need to be fighting against that stuff, so they can protect their own interests. But they're not even willing to do that. Right, at the expense. You gotta understand that these people have always been American first, right? And when I say that, I don't mean that we're not American, because you are, whether you want to believe that or not. What I'm saying is that they will preserve the union and the status quo before they deal with white supremacy. And that's always been the issue. It's always been the issue. And that is why there was a big exodus from the Republican Party. They're going to preserve the union before they.
That's what Abraham Lincoln said.
Yeah, before they deal with white supremacy. That's what's going to happen, and that's unfortunate. And so you need voices to remind them and remind us. Look, you got black people, brother. You're my man who ran for governor in California.
Oh, Larry Elder. Backwards.
That guy was a complete nut. You know what I mean?
What you mean? Baba Zaidi worked on the campaign. He told me, call me that day.
Wow.
Crazy person. I know that ain't right. That's
wow, Chris.
They couldn't even
one thing to
sell
throw
me
me
that
under
for
the
$1,
bus. Now you're
brother.
throwing Zaid under the bus.
They couldn't sell me that for $1.
Oh no! That's why that was so easy. That was easy because that ain't never gonna ride. Nobody believe that.
Yeah.
You see, nobody even flinched. It was like lies, all lies, lies for $500.
That guy is a complete nut. He said he would vote. He would have voted against the Civil Rights Act.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
He sure would.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
He would have voted against it.
Wow.
Right.
Yep.
And look, that's why this stuff is crazy out here, man. We just have to be careful, really.
And to be clear, that crazy it is. It's organized. That's right. They're organized.
Right.
Yeah.
With all that
These
organized.
These guys initiated a recall on the governor of California.
I was getting ready to raise it right on time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That stood up the muster of law. They got all of the signatures. You know how hard it is to get all of those signatures to do a recall? That's very, very difficult.
Mayor Baraka, there's an amazing book you need to get a copy of. It's called The Religion of White Rage by Biko Mandela Gray. And a bunch of these black theologians wrote a book that says that the actual religion, the most dominant religious persuasion in America is white supremacy.
That's right. I'll go with
So,
that.
What's the name of that book?
It's called The Religion of White Rage by Biko Mandela Gray. He's one of the editors. He's the chief editor.
I need to check that out. No, but that's about right, man. And they're gonna protect that at all costs, man. Even in some instances, unbeknownst to themselves, right? You know, just to preserve the culture of what was against what is. Like people keep talking about the census, right? So we're going back and forth about who's the largest city in the state in terms of the census. What people need to really know about the census is that what the census is saying is that New Jersey is about to be predominantly a state of color. That's what the census is saying. It's following the pathway of the country quicker.
And you kind of know that because if the majority of white people voted, the Republicans win. If people of color don't vote in New Jersey, the Republicans win all the time because the majority of white people vote Republican in overwhelming majority numbers. And that's not just Trump. That's governor's elections, Senate elections, right? It's very consistent. Close to 60% of white people in New Jersey, close to 60% of white people in New Jersey voted for Trump and will vote for Republican no matter what. But they never win.
Close your eyes and get ready.
Because there's overwhelmingly people of color.
Well, your boy, Chris Christie gonna be running.
That the census is telling us that is people of color or black and brown people are becoming more predominant. We just have to be organized. We got to be organized.
That's right.
Because it ain't gonna matter if you're not organized. It don't matter.
Right.
But you know what comes to mind, man? Therein lies that revelation you had, right? How they test the system, right?
That's right, brother.
You know, right. I mean, I'm telling you, man, there was no truer words than that revelation you was given when that alarm was going off and how you were breaking it down, my brother.
Yeah.
That they always test that system.
100%. They're gonna test it, brother. And if you ain't ready, you're gonna fall victim.
Yeah.
There it is.
The religion of white race.
I gotta get out of here, gentlemen.
All right, man. Yep. Just want to say thank you,
sir.
my brother. Appreciate you coming through to do the forum. Appreciate it.
Always, man. Always.
Be blessed, sir. Be safe.
All right, man.
All right, so thank you. That's All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. And that was a great segment. We always get a lot of good wisdom and a lot of lessons learned when the mayor comes on. We are honored today to have Maria Lopez on from ICC. I'm going to just let Baba Zaid give the full introduction because that's been the tradition. But we're very honored to have you back. You've been doing so much work on the environment and environmental justice. We are so honored to have you with us. Zaid?
Before that, but is Melissa in the back? Is Melissa backstage?
Yes, we are putting her on right now.
All right. Right, nobody in the field now. All right.
All right.
Military 101. All right. So folks do not realize what we have going on in this town historically and in the moment, right? Not only was Newark in the forefront of what Black Power actually looks like or should look like, right? In the early 70s under the mayor's father, right? We also the beginning of what we now call environmental justice and then what that should look like with people looking like us, right? We got some of the best of that right here in Newark. Right here in Newark, right? Right down neck, right? Right down neck, right? So we're proud to have Maria Lopez-Nuñez, who also has the distinction of being asked to be on an advisory commission for President Biden on the question of environment. I hope he's listening. Let Maria tell us how much he's listening to that. And then folks may not recognize Melissa Miles is another one of those organizers. Another one. See, we had these discussions. People look like us need to be in these discussions. You see, So that's why we got Maria, we got Melissa. This is what an environmental racism discussion should look like, right? So we got, you know, part of my military language. We got the guns. We might as well use them. All right. So, so all power to the people. All things are local. Welcome back, Maria Lopez-Nuñez, and welcome to the first time, Melissa Miles. Right.
All right.
Another raging rock throw out of the legendary ICC Ironbound Community Corporation for the well-being of Mother Earth, that is our environment. All right. Welcome. Right. So we're back. You want to start it off, Jonathan? Go ahead. Set it off.
We started off talking about the Ida and how Ida is affecting New Jersey and how we're not involved in these conversations. What is the local and national conversations about right now when you're dealing with Ida and what's going on?
Yeah, and one thing I want to correct, that, you know, Melissa left me a while ago, and she's now the executive director of the mighty New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance.
Oh,
so
really?
You know, the leadership is spreading.
Nice.
I don't want to mistitle her. You know, she's the ED of her own org over there, and really working to support us here on the front lines.
Well, right on, Melissa. I didn't know that. Right on.
Yeah, right. Really exciting. Yeah, so Ida, like first let's just be real. They weren't talking about Newark in the news when it came to Ida. They were talking about New York and they were talking about Philly. They don't do as right cities like Newark. And then when it came to New Jersey, they were just showing footage of white folks town, right? Of like where the hurricane touched the hurricane tornadoes touched down in South Jersey. And I feel for them. But I also know that after Sandy, people ignored Newark, right? And they acted like Newark didn't get hit at all. I think it was the same thing with Ida. FEMA was flying the little helicopter. Where's the damage? And they couldn't see the damage because in Newark, you know, it was basements getting flooded, first floor apartments. And that affects largely Black and brown people, right? And so they were looking at the damage of first family homes and worried about that. So it took it actually an extra week. And that was because the mayor had to go fight, the government, like everybody had to go fight to get Newark on the FEMA list so that we could get the proper resources we need. So that's just where we started off. We started off bad in terms of disaster response to Ida.
And Melissa?
Oh, well, I think, Maria really said it all when it comes to, how communities of color, Black and brown communities are often left out of the climate and environmental narrative. This is not new behavior, on the part of systems in this country. And so, it's important that right now, particularly while the words environmental justice are on everyone's lips, but, even though it's such a huge topic now, you still see these ways in which structural racism is still rearing its ugly head, and you still see the ways in which the communities that are actually most impacted by the systems that basically help society to run. So, the issue with flooding in a place like Newark is that you have chemical factories, that are abutted with folks' homes. You have sewage treatment plants. You have various recycling facilities. People think recycling is a clean industry, but all you need to do is go down neck and you will see the paper and the metal and how it's just sitting out, and it's right near people's homes and the trucks going back and forth. And so you take all of that, we call that cumulative impacts, right? When you are living in a place that is dealing with various types of pollution and how that's all mixing in your environment, and also with the social conditions of the place. So, you're also in a place where folks don't necessarily have the means to remove themselves when they're in the way of climate disaster. So, it was really like a triple whammy when, a climate disaster like Ida comes through. You already have, all of the issues on the ground in the community when it comes to environmental justice, and then you have the climate disaster, and then you have the complete lack of response on the part of government officials. And of course, Newark is not the only community that deals with that. Many Black and brown communities throughout the country, are facing the same problem.
Now, when you're talking about a lack of response in terms of government, one of the things that that both of you said that I thought was interesting is that people talk about environmental justice, but they don't do anything about it. So when you're talking about, like, we hear that there's supposed to be this $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, and we hear that that's supposed to help with climate change. We hear that people are talking about the environment. Practically, is there anything that's dealing with policy that we should be saying yes to?
Mhm.
Are any of the policies right now that are being talked about, like $3.5 trillion, is that going to Black and brown communities?
We're gonna have to fight for that, right? Biden made a bold promise, Justice 40, he calls it, right? But if you look at it, and I'm not gonna get too nerdy on you, but like it says 40% of investment benefits, right? That's like unmeasurable. What's an investment benefit? It should just be 40% of investments. So at the very least, we could guarantee that we were getting 40% of 3.5 trillion. That's what I think our communities need to be hearing on the ground. That's not what we're hearing. We're hearing there'll be some investment benefits where they make some weird formula to quantify how much a value they think they added, right? And what we really try to push for, not just at ICC, but like statewide, nationwide, with the environmental justice movement, is self-determination. Like they should be putting processes in place so that communities determine what they need. Like Newark knows where the flooding happens. We don't need no Rutgers, or no offense to Rutgers, but we don't need scientists coming in to study the problem. You could tell, like if you drive around your neighborhood, you could tell where it floods.
Right.
And we should be in the position to say, yo, it floods on Furling-Hazen Avenue, it floods on 21, it floods on South Street. Could we get green infrastructure there? Could we get the pipes fixed up there? You know? So that's what we need to be pushing for, is how do communities that are directly impacted get decision-making power over real money, not like perceived money.
And can you get a little nerdy? Can both of you get a little bit nerdy with us? A little bit, right? Like, as in,
You tell me what you want.
Well,
you're saying that
hold on. I'm trying to your point, but I want us to make it plain, because I don't want us to seem that being nerdy is ain't cool. Right now, we need to be clear on this, whether it's nerdy or not, because our lives depend on this shit.
Absolutely.
Here, right. So let's get in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
taking the gloves off.
So what is it that you mean? Like you said something like Biden promised 40% of the benefit, right? But it's not 40% of the money. And that sounds like we're going to get screwed, because
Absolutely.
It's a formula where we can be ignored. Can you break down the way in which the Biden, where the infrastructure bill that people are going to say that benefits Black and brown communities, what is there in the existing language that's going to screw us over that we need to go, no?
Absolutely. I mean, in the existing language, there's investments to fossil fuels. There's investments to nuclear. Nuclear is often seen like, oh, we need it. We don't need nuclear. You can never get rid of nuclear. Ask indigenous people. It's just dangerous. Like, did we not see what happened in other countries when nuclear reactors have exploded? Forget about nuclear weapons, right? There's some crazy science stuff in there, like carbon capture and sequestration, which is just, again, like they have Exxon executives caught on tape saying like, yeah, that's just a distraction. We know that stuff doesn't work. And obviously, if you hear it, it sounds like science fiction. Like, we're going to put a pipe and we're going to capture the emissions coming off the power plant and we're going to force it back into the ground. And you know what that resulted is down south, they had explosions from these experiments. So there's all sorts of things like that we're going to get screwed over. And there are things we need to push for, right? Like, we need to push for, we talk about like the other types of infrastructure, which is like childcare, education, right? Medicare, like human infrastructure that we absolutely need money for. And then we need money for transition in our cities. Like in Newark, we need, the mayor talked about how much they've invested. I forget what number he gives out. And that's great, but he needs so much more money to work with the size of the problem that our city has after not having had money to invest out to upgrade our infrastructure for the past 150 years. That's not our mayor's fault. That's legacies of disinvestment, especially after Newark had white flight, they stopped investing in Newark and keeping it upgraded from the state perspective, right? So there's all sorts of things like that we need to make sure get in, and things that we need to kick out.
And just to make it clear, when you're saying there was investment that was stopped, you're talking about like the state of New Jersey would spend money on Newark when white people lived in Newark. And I believe that we had Rakia Lamumba on before, and she talked about how in Mississippi, the state government is really like trying to undermine the infrastructure of Jackson, predominantly Black Jackson, to be able to hijack that, right? In order to hurt it so that the state can benefit. You're saying that there are similar structures that happen where the money doesn't go to the communities directly. The money goes to the state and often doesn't find its way to the communities.
Absolutely. Melissa, you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the money, right? So how many hands does it have to pass through before it gets to communities, right? And then also, how does 3.5 billion shake out when you're looking at, you know, the municipalities around the country? How much money does that, you know, equal to for each municipality? And then, you know, in a place like Newark or like New York City, like Trenton, like Boston, you know, these cities with, you know, when you're looking at a few $1 million, it doesn't shake out to a whole lot. So, you know, it's going to be necessary to, you know, for us to raise our voices to make sure that these funds get to the places where they're most needed, just like Maria was saying. And there are different ways we're doing that. So Maria and I both sit on a coalition called NJ Thrive that is, you know, actively working to engage communities and legislators to make sure that, you know, folks' needs are heard from their own mouths, and that information gets to legislators so that they know when that money does come down the pipe, you know, where it needs to go. You know, and so this is part of a national effort, right? So here in New Jersey, we're connected with communities like Jackson, Mississippi, you know, and we, you know, one of the advantages that we have, even though we're small organizations, you know, we might be a city that, you know, has a variety of issues, but we, you know, I know even, you know, our mayor has connections in Jackson, Mississippi. You know, we have to utilize those connections to kind of, you know what's happening in different areas and help to inform what we're doing here. You know, but it's definitely a long road, and, you know, we will have our fight ahead of us.
Listen, let me ask you something, right? And then I'm saying, I'm into my 6th decade and been throwing rocks at this system for over 40 years, right? But in terms of this particular question, I must say I have a whole lot to learn. And I've always said and always say that representation matters when it comes to getting people involved in speaking up for themselves and making self-determination real. And I can remember just a few years ago, a community elder that I grew up under. I grew up with her daughter. I went to high school in not too far in Roselle. Her name is Myrtle Counts. Myrtle Counts ran our local NAACP for years, right? I'm at a rally done by the New Jersey Poor People's Campaign, one of their first major rallies in New Jersey in Trenton several years ago. Here comes Miss Counts, an aging elder now at this point, introducing herself as being a representative of Black folks in Cancer Alley, right? And all these years, I never heard that like that coming from a Black woman, right? And what that did to my head, well into his 50s at that point, like, damn, I know Miss Count since I was like 12 years old. Why is that hitting me like a thunderbolt now, right? And I'm saying that to say, how do we get more voices and faces like yours and Maria's and Miss Counts in these discussions? How do we raise up the consciousness of our community to understand that? And
well, this is the question of the day. This is the question of the day.
I got to ask.
This is the question of the day, Baba Zaid. I mean, we're everywhere asking the same question. How do we create, a pipeline of leaders in this state? Just specifically speaking about New Jersey, how do we create a pipeline of leaders here in New Jersey that can, further and forward this work? And I think one of the most important things, to me at least, is to realize that, there is a living in this. There was my own personal story. I mean, 10 years ago, you couldn't have told me that I would make my living doing environmental justice work or any kind of environmental work for that. Who knew, right? I was always in education and out of school time education. Most of my life I've been interacting with young people who were college bound, part of organizations that were constantly funneling them towards, business, towards industry, towards Wall Street, right? Towards law firms. And no one was ever talking about the environment, right? When I finally got started in the environment, I had to go down to Louisiana and to California to see what folks out there were facing. And little did I know that in my own backyard, I was facing similar problems. In my whole life, I had grown up in DJ communities, but I didn't know that. So, I think the most important thing is that those of us who are in this movement, that we help young people particularly to understand that no matter what they're interested in, whether it be social media or law or, justice or science, that there is a way that there's a path for them here where they can both make their living, support themselves, support their families, and further their communities, and most of all, not damage their communities. Because unfortunately, so many of the pathways that we lay out for young people actually become damaging, to their own psyches, because we're basically sending them into systems of white supremacy without any, kind of real education on what they're getting into. And I know this is a whole other topic. But, and without, basically sending them out there with the hopes that, through work and making money, that they'll be able to create the kind of changes that we know don't happen that way. So, I think what's important is that we orient young people towards the fact that they can help their communities, and, you ain't gonna get rich, right? But you will be able to live and eat and support yourself, and actually at the end of the day, feel like you did something good. So yes, it is important. We must create these pipelines, and, that's what it's about right now.
Let me say something, and listen, and I get criticized by my He-Man backwards comrades of all ages and stripes, and that's all right, because I got a little hurricane left in me yet, right? And they know that, so they know they can't go so far with that, right? One of the things that I'm proud of this particular historical moment, I want to lift this up, and I want y'all to respond to it, because I'm trying to bring some things together in this conversation, is that last summer was a hugely important protest summer, the most historic in terms of its size and dimension, right? Overwhelmingly led by young women that look like y'all, right? There's this beginning of a language beginning to emerge in the fight against mass incarceration that's called restorative justice, right? And that has certain underpinnings. And certainly when it comes to the environment, we're talking about Earth Mother. What I'm getting at is that there is a womanist/feminist energy that is underpinning all of this, right? That needs to be appreciated. What say y'all about the importance of men and women being able to understand that energy, that motion, and the importance of being able to embrace that in a way that's going to be the balancing act that saves the environment? I know I ask big questions, right? But let's chop it up. Whatever we can do.
Yeah, I mean, Zaid, I think what you're talking about is how did we ever let white people gentrify the environment, right? Like, or our relationships with the environment. I think all those of us of Black and Indigenous descent have, we have to remember our relationship with our mother, and how that has sustained our societies for so long, right? Like if look at any of our societies, we lived in balance, right? We lived in harmony, in mutual and reciprocal relationship with our environment. And somehow you fast forward to today, and a lot of people think that that's some tree hugging white shit, right? Like what? That I think that that's just white supremacy. And I love what you're bringing up about the feminist energy of it. I'll be honest, I have a lot of my own work to do with that, to do on that end, right? Of trying to decolonize and get rid of these ideas that femininity or loving your mom is bad, right? And then like being close to the earth, like I try to look hard all the time. I'm not gonna say, yeah, I love my mother earth. You know, like I don't. Oh, I'm not always vocal about those things, and I think all of us, right? All of us right here, we need to like be vulnerable that way and deepen our relationship with our environment in a public way that is about remembering. You know, we're always talking about culture. It's so central to all our organizing, no matter what it is, whether that be police brutality, education, what have you. We're always talking about culture, and culture would have us always honor our ancestors and honor our Mother Earth. You know, so I that's what it's bringing up for me. I don't know what you're thinking, Melissa. I know motherhood. That's Melissa right there. When I hear motherhood,
Nah, I really appreciate that, Maria. I think that was really beautifully put. And you know, one of the first things I realized about this environmental justice movement is that it's a place where I felt like I could be myself. You know, and then I learned some of the deeper politics, you know, even within these movement spaces around race and gender and economics and such. But, you know, early on, it was really about me, you know, embracing this role as an environmental justice activist exactly as I am, right? So like Maria was saying, for me, it was like while pushing a stroller, while, you know, doing truck counts with my children in tow, you know, showing up at hearings at City Hall with, you know, my kids being entertained in the benches, and, you know, just really bringing my full self as a woman into the work. And, you know, like Maria, I also have work to do to reconnect, right? I grew up in the concrete jungles of New York City, and then places like Jersey City, and then Newark, and, you know, not always feeling like, you know, that I had my own connection to the land, into the place. And particularly as a Black person, I feel like we've been often systematically disconnected from our relationship with land and water and air, you know, and it's sort of been replaced through, you know, mass media and marketing and capitalism with relationships to things that we actually don't even need and shouldn't be consuming, but that's another story, right? So, you know, so, and when it comes to, I think, these issues of gender that you brought up, you know, I feel that, you know, we all have the feminine and the masculine energies, right? We all have the ability to be both the caretaker and the protector, right? So it's really up to all of us to develop those sides of ourselves in a balanced way. And, you know, really everyone, right? Because so many of us are so deeply out of balance internally. And then we're out of balance in our relationship with others, and then we're out of balance in our relationship to the earth. And so, you know, all of that is related. Like, you know, you mentioned mass incarceration. Well, you know, in the environmental justice movement, we talk about extraction, right? So extraction looks like many things. Extraction can look like a pipeline. You know, extraction can look like drilling. Extraction can look like taking, you know, all of the men from a community and leaving the women and the children defenseless, right? This, you know, not to say women can't defend themselves. Please don't take that wrong. We know we can, right? We know we get down for our children and our people. But like, you know, that is intentional, right? We extracting the bodies, extracting the people, you know, extracting the wealth, extracting the health from communities. This is all part of the same system. You know, so when we regain that balance, then we can start to see and understand the ways that we need to move, you know, in these other systems.
Jonathan, go ahead, jump. I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
This is just a clarification on extraction. Is that the way of looking at everything is how we affect our environment, and extracting individuals through prisons is also an environmental issue? Like, because it's the same, and I'm asking because because the first time I've heard this. So is it like we look at the way in which we look at nature is the same way we look at our communities? So we extract things from nature and we don't really respect it, but that same mentality forces us to extract people and resources for these white supremacists like dominant ants. Is that really what the way the term is being used in environmental literature?
And treat them like what, Maria?
Yo,
like waste, right? It's the same, like waste, the same way they call it a dig, burn, dump economy, right? We extract resources, you use them up, and then you dump them and they become waste in somebody else's community. And Maria could tell you all about that in the Ironbound, right? What it looks like to be the recipient, both the recipient of the junk when it comes in through the port and the recipient of the waste on the other end. And that is exactly how this society treats bodies, right? Especially Black and brown bodies. Like use them up and then discard them.
I mean, if you were talking about Jackson before, then I imagine you've read Khalil's book and everything. He's always talking about the disposable bodies, right? Disposable bodies, like disposable cups. Like, yeah, you're getting it, and I'm really excited that you're getting it and how the audience might get it through your articulation, because that's why I love environmental justice. I want to be clear. It's not in the environmental literature. The environmental literature is white and BS, right? Like, no offense to them, or I guess whatever. But what is beautiful about the environmental justice movement is that it is by and for Black and brown people, by indigenous people, by folks of Asian descent, of Black descent, and understanding that in order to fight white supremacy, that we have to go to the foundation. Remember, the foundation of this country is taking indigenous people out of their land, extracting bodies from their land and forcing them over here, and then forcing them to work the land to build this economic empire that then subjugates the rest of the world and treats the whole world as not its oyster, as its dumpster, right? That we can go as America to anybody's country, ruin their governments, just kill their people, and then take whatever we want. Like I'm from Honduras, the banana republic, right? Like just a colony of the US with a puppet government. And all of that to me is environmental justice. People talk about Berta Cáceres. She was fighting the whole state, and she was fighting for her land, right? The land of our descendants that we have a right to. And we all have a right to be able to have a relationship with the land, which is the first thing white supremacy robs from us, that has robbed from people. And yeah, so that's why environmental justice is social justice. It's housing justice. It's why we throw down on police brutality. It's because all of this is the same. And when we silo it, when we think we can only have one fight or this fight, then we're separating ourselves as human beings. We're not seeing the holistic, the whole of our life.
You mentioned two authors. I'm going to ask you to slow down for me. And you mentioned someone that you assumed I read, and I did not. You dealt with Jackson, Mississippi. I want to write that down. And you also mentioned someone else just recently. I just want to write those.
No, absolutely.
Keep those authors.
Kali's last name, Melissa.
Kelly Brown. Kelly
Kali
Brown Douglas, is that right?
I'm sorry?
Well, because he wrote the Cooperative Jackson book.
Yeah, Jackson Rising. It's It's a compilation of stories. Yeah, he's the editor, Kali Akuno, Jackson Rising.
Oh, yeah, I know Kali. We ought to get him on, Jonathan. I know Kali.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the and so good. So and the other person that you talked about, because just as full disclosure, I'm a high school debate coach, and our topic this year is on the United States federal government. It's about how the United States federal government should pass some laws to substantially protect water resources. And the areas that we're looking at are like Jackson, Newark, and Detroit, and how they are symptomatic of the larger communities, right? And larger problems within our communities. So we are definitely not only just going to have you back on. I would like to have even more extensive conversations, and if you would, want to talk to members of our high school debate team, because they actually do some serious research with our coaches, that would be very helpful to us this year, because it's the topic for the entire year, and the stuff that you were breaking down, I'm like, wow, that's just incredible, the way that you were articulating it. So I'm taking notes.
No, I want the access to those young heads because they're the next line. See,
Yeah.
they're the next line of organizers.
Absolutely. So, some of them actually do become organized. That is true. Like we've had housing organizers, we'd have people who chain themselves to Trump Towers, and we have people who become investment bankers, and we have people who become doctors and lawyers. But they're all they're all aware of certain things that are really important. So I appreciate that a lot. I was going to ask a follow-up question on when it like the importance of identity and community and the stuff that you're doing is incredible. I was going to ask, is there a connection, especially with the stuff that you're talking about, as in the deficiencies of current bills, right? Like the deficiencies of the infrastructure bill, or how there are certain things that are hidden in legislation that screw our communities. Is there are both of you talking to our congressmen as their dialogue with the Congressional Black Caucus, because they're working on these bills, right? And they're working on these infrastructure bills that are 3.5 trillion. Is what you're talking about being directly communicated with them?
So the short answer, I personally don't have contact with the Congressional Black Caucus, but would be happy to make connections. Folks, I'm always looking for conversation. As far as our legislators go, there's definitely conversations happening, through the New Jersey Thrive table that we both sit at. And I mean, honestly, when it comes to this legislation, this federal legislation, Maria's probably more involved in it, than I am. Through work that we both sit at on national coalitions, because ultimately our work is really local, right? Like I'm part of a statewide organization. Maria's part of a community organization, but understanding like the way that we build power and sometimes connect to work that's happening around these complex issues at the federal level is to do it in coalition, right, with other communities like our own, and that's how we build power. But when it comes to coalition building, it is crucial. So anyone you think we should connect to, that's why I put my email address, as my name, so that anybody out there who says, hey, we need to talk about this, can reach out.
So tell me.
Yeah, and I guess to answer you on the federal stuff, it is complicated. Are we talking here? Like Melissa said, we're part of the table. We've talked to, Senator Pallone. We've tried to have meetings with a lot of the delegation on the specific issues in their committee that we want them to address. Now, we are one of many, many stakeholders, and this is where we need more work to make sure that folks in our communities care about these issues. Because then when they come back and folks are only saying, give us jobs, no matter what jobs, we got to start getting specific with our demands of our politicians, because then they're like, oh, we'll get you jobs, warehouse jobs, we'll get you jobs. Oh, we're going to increase these pipelines. Or, we're seeing in New Jersey now, we're going to have the wind, but who's being trained in the wind industry? I want to see Newarkers working on the wind farms. I want to see Newarkers manufacturing the wind farms. I want to see warehouse, instead, what did we hear? Amazon's going to expand the cargo holding capacity at Newark Airport. That's what's destined for us. So that's why I do want to intersect more on the conversations of environmental justice is economic justice. And we need to make sure that what we're pushing for reflects all the way back, so that then when folks like Melissa or I talk to our legislators, we don't look crazy, because sometimes I do. I'll be transparent, because so many of the think tanks are white. They come at environmental issues that just save some land, put some solar panels, and we're good. Obviously, those solutions don't work for our communities where Newark's 78% renters, how do renters benefit from solar panels? Newark floods a lot. These are issues that we care about, and we're not just down the shore. So we need more amplification, and we appreciate y'all for always doing this. Is trying to bring these issues to the front for our communities.
And one of the things that we always try to do on this show, and one of the things that we've always believed was so important, is activists and politicians have to talk.
Hell
right?
yeah.
Like we have to get activists and politicians in the same room, or at least because what you talked about today in terms of the way legislation can be backdoored, when you're talking about like 40% and you're talking about think tanks, that 40% sounded good to me. I was like, cool, good in the legislation. And then you broke it down, was like, wait. That's a term they're using to make it to try to say 40% of the benefit. Like there are Black people who live in New Jersey and New Jersey will benefit, but it won't actually go to Black communities and we'll be in the same place, right? Like if they were specifically targeted for Black people, for brown people, we're not going to get it, right?
We're not going to get it. And we need control of that money. You know, it can't just be like it's coming down. And I respect the mayor, right? But he won't always be the mayor. We can't just even leave it at the municipal level because you see that across the country. Not everybody has an administration, even on the municipal level, that has the community. We saw that in Linden, right? Like, let's just backtrack here. We're fighting the sludge plant in Newark, and the mayor of Linden came on to our town hall where we did have the mayor. You know what? I will shout out, like Senator Rui showed up, Assemblywoman Pinto Marin, Assemblywoman Spate. She showed up for the sludge plant. They were all there as a united front against this sludge plant. But you know who showed up on the sludge plant side? The mayor of Linden, right? Who obviously didn't talk to his community.
I can see that.
Yeah, so you know that's why we need protection, so that to make sure that it's our communities who determine what happens with that money, so that it, like what we call it is draw down the federal resources, draw them all the way down, right? So that it's money in like people's pocket, which is what made the stimulus so great. The stimulus checks that we all got individually, we saw that actually had a boom to the economy. At the end of the day, I don't know what white supremacists are so scared of. What's good for one is really good for all, right? If we better our communities, their ancestors, their grandchildren won't have to drink poisoned water. Like we're trying to save them from themselves.
Exactly.
Right. And I just wanted to add that, you know, Maria mentioned the wind farms and, you know, offshore wind, but, you know, folks are talking a lot about this new green economy, right? And how energy, you know, in the state, it has to change. You know, the governor is mandated by 2050, you know, our energy has to be coming from cleaner sources. And so, you know, there is this kind of national and even worldwide movement around, you know, around clean energy, if you want to call it that, because, you know, I mean, it all poisons something, but cleaner than what we're currently using. You know, like wind and like solar, and small hydro, right? Not those huge dams that break and poison people's water, but small hydro. And really, you know, what the state is focusing on is wind and solar. So, you know, there's different ways to look at that. You know, on the one hand, people can potentially see savings in their bill, right? From, you know, from solar. If you are able to have a solar panel or be a part of a community solar project, you may end up being able to sell energy to the grid and actually even make some money in addition to generating energy in your home. And then if you're able to have a job, you know, that is either in, you know, there's so many jobs that are coming along with this green economy or this, you know, this green energy economy, you know, everything from supply chain to manufacturing, like Maria's saying, to, you know, to construction, you know, then you can really start to see the benefits, right? It's not just about like a handout, right? But about how do we become owners, right? There's ways that communities can actually control and own their own energy generation. And so, you know, when you talk about grids going down, right, and people being without energy, you know, communities that are talking about a just transition, that are talking about just recovery, like many of our partners in Louisiana right now, they're not just talking about, you know, how do we go back to business as usual, but how do we make the kind of transformations that bring things, you know, to the scale of community, right? Both ownership and operation, you know, and that may be far down the road, but, you know, where we start is like, you know, the jobs, right? being specific. Like, we want those clean jobs. We want those green jobs. We don't want the jobs that expose us to toxins. We don't want the jobs that, diminish our quality of life and our health, because they're there, right? And there are already people in the state taking advantage of them. But unfortunately, they are not normally from the communities that have the highest energy burdens, in the forms of hosting the energy infrastructure, right? So in a place like Newark, you have 3 energy generating facilities in one zip code, and all of them have some sort of air pollution that they're putting out. And 2 of them are using, one of them is using frac natural gas, right? So that's coming underground in pipes. And then you also have folks in those communities unable to take advantage of the energy efficiency programs that people in wealthier communities and middle class communities who may own their homes are able to take advantage of, because their homes are newer, because they're kind of ready for upgraded windows. They have a decent roof. They can put solar on. In a city of renters, in a city with an old housing stock, people can't take advantage of that. So they're losing money through their rental unit or through their home, and they can't take advantage of the programs that help to upgrade and save them money, and they're paying more of their income in energy than wealthier households. So again, it's like one thing stacked on top of the other. Those are the communities that should be first in line when we start talking about benefits from this new, this green energy economy.
Jonathan, we're almost out of time for this segment, but I want to raise something, put a pin on it, and work on bringing them back with a discussion, with another level, layer to this discussion on another level. I was trying to reach out, Maria. I think I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago. The UN did a report on climate change a little while ago, because I want to internationalize the discussion, right? And one of the contributors was a guy named Robert Koop, who's based at Rutgers, right? And so we're also trying to engage our local Rutgers community, in these discussions that we do on his show. He was on vacation, so we couldn't hook it up the way I wanted to now, right? But I want to look at, John, we can look at trying to pull another round of this discussion and bring Professor Koop into this and look at this on the international side. What does this mean for us in Honduras? What countries are actually trying to go green? Where do we have good examples that we need to look at? And what must we correct from the big superpowers like Japan going backwards on nuclear energy, right? The United States being the monster of the world in terms of agriculture and natural resources. I mean, y'all hear where I'm going, right?
Right.
So we want to extend this conversation. It was a great conversation. Melissa, I'm very proud of you. We need you, and you're one of those new young voices that we need in the front of this, right? I'm proud of that step that you took, right? We needed to come back, talk about the coalition. We need to talk about the alliance for a minute too. So just to wrap that up, put a pin in that, Jonathan. You wanted to.
And actually, I know that we are closing in on time, but I'm going to ask one more question that will probably take us a little over time if you both will humor me. And I know I'm always getting in trouble for saying this, but we got a little bit more flexibility today. Our topic is about water resources and protecting water resources. And just on a very basic level, and answer me what you will, but what is going on right now locally in terms of our water resources from an environmental perspective? Because we're looking at like Newark, we're looking at Michigan, we're looking at Jackson. Is the water safe? What are the things that are going on right now? Like if you had a wish list of things that need to be done, what would it be from an environmental perspective?
All right, I'll break the ice here. Well, in one of our coalitions, we work with Chief Mans from the Lenape folks, right, who are up in Ridgewood, New Jersey. And that's, I think, a part of the puzzle we're not talking about in Newark enough, because we talk a lot about lead and the pipes, right? but we need to talk about the water source, because the folks in Ringwood are actually living on a Superfund site, and that Superfund site is dangerously close, right? It shares a retaining wall with our water reservoir, which is where Newark and many other cities get their water from, actually. And so you have to wonder, right? And it's a Superfund site because the Ford Corporation polluted it. They did a lot of mining there, and then they just left it. And so, in Newark, we deal with this problem called vapor intrusion, right? Which is like when the water is contaminated, the chemicals try to make their way out. In vapor intrusion can happen at any moment. Um, Cross contamination, right? If you have a open mining pit that was just left there without being cared for, that's, I think, for me, something that keeps me up at night. And I try not to. I'll be honest. I try not to think about it. But it's like we were really concerned with the lead in the pipes, and that's important. We should have clean pipes, but we need to preserve our water quality, starting from where it is. And then, if you think about it again, environmental justice, if you center people, you really will take care of the earth, because we treat people as we treat the earth. And we've left this indigenous tribe just sitting there, right, on a Superfund site, and they need to be relocated, and we need a full cleanup. So that's one of the big things that comes to mind when I think about water in our area.
No, thank you, because that puts, and one of the things that you talked about earlier is that all of these issues are interrelated, right? So you have issues with indigenous people that directly affect Black and brown peoples, because that's our water source, right? And all of these, and it seems like there's not much care, that there's only a wall between a major water source and a Superfund site, and there's not care because we don't really care about the people who are on that site.
Yeah, who are sick, like it hurts to hear, my relative, Chief Mans, often talk about his relatives dying, his immediate relatives dying of cancer. And it's something that, if we really think in our families, we probably see folks dying of cancer and tumors, and we're not investigating that enough, right? We're not investigating that enough. And in New Jersey, if you track the level of concentration of pollution and the concentration of people of color, they are the same chart, so we need to care. And that's where we need to be interdependent, and lend that solidarity. He's really come down and shown us a lot of support for the lead pipes. And he keeps saying we can't just be focused on the pipes. It's not just about the lead. We have to dig deeper.
And Melissa?
I mean, I think Maria, I'm glad that you brought that up, Maria. Very important. I mean, water, when it comes to water, because so much of our body is water, and because of the ways that water is treated, chemically treated, I'm really particular about my water sources. And this is just me personally. This is not me speaking as an ED. This is like, I only drink water that is purified and alkaline. I go to this place in Elizabeth. They're popping up all over the place. You can get a big, I got big glass jars, and that's where I use my water. I just invested in a water filter that takes out, pharmaceutical chemicals, all types of heavy metals. And, unfortunately, the situation with water in this country is really it's much more serious, I think, than we know. Just the amount of pollutants that are even put in the water supposedly to protect us, the number of studies that have been done on fluoride, and again, this is me speaking as like a mother. Like I don't cook with it, I've tried I try to use the best water source I can, and I feel privileged that I can do that. Not everybody can have that, which is why we need to fight to do the best with our public water sources, right? So everything Maria said is right on point. But if you can, honestly, I work like I do because 10 years ago, I was like, I got to get better water, so, rather than my kids don't wear Jordan, but we got water.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I mean that. Thank you so much for that, because that's very helpful. And in addition to getting you back on the air and trying to make sure that even on the statewide level and on a national level, like as much connection as that we can try to make, we will try to do that, because I think that's just so important. Like the nuance that you bring to it, because you study it. You are like our think tank, right? We don't have Black and brown people don't have think tanks on the environment. Like
We ain't got to think tank so much of anything.
Right. And I think that the knowledge you bring and the nuance to that knowledge, like you're talking about nerding out, but like that's necessary to save people's lives, right? Like the fact that we don't nerd out on these things.
That was one earlier, absolutely.
Right, like that has dire life and death consequences for us. So we absolutely appreciate both of you, and we'll definitely want both of you back and to both on the show and to have conversations with kids, and we think all that's just incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Now,
thank you for inviting me.
Don't leave yet, because we have a question to ask you that we can't not get away from. Now, Maria,
get ready for this, Melissa. You gotta buckle up.
Uh-oh.
Now, Maria has answered this question before.
Maria's been on with us before, yes.
Right. But we are All Politics are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. And when we were in the studio pre-COVID, we would have a lot more music, etc. But we are asking you the question that we ask everyone who is on our show, and that is, who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
Oh wow. Okay, I'm sorry, but Tribe Called Quest came up first. Q-Tip and Tribe Called Quest came to mind first. It can change though from day to day, but that's who came up.
Yep, because sometimes who are you just rocking with now?
You know, I'm a 80s baby, so you know, Tribe, Jungle Brothers, you know, all of those heads, KRS-One, you know, all of those kind of conscious heads, but they made the booty shaking music, you know, but they had a point to it. I don't really listen to hip hop now. Sorry, I'm about to go over you. Fair enough.
And Maria, who did you say it last time? And you can tell us who you're rocking with now.
Well, yeah, I will forever have my favorite be Biggie Smalls, just being from Brooklyn. But right now, I'm actually really rocking with Piff Martin. You know, I don't know if you've heard Boys Do Cry, but you should check that out.
Okay.
Going back without theme. Everybody should listen to that song.
Nice. So you got the indie artists. I need to get into these indie artists.
Absolutely.
Y'all both just got the seal of approval from my own DJ Rhino. So on.
And so thank you so much for coming on and being our guest. You are very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Love y'all.
Damon gave you a shout out as well.
Talk to y'all later.
Take care.
Good stuff. Good.
Absolutely.
Stuff. Yes.
And so that is All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. We are going into the next phase, the 8 o'clock phase. I know we're waiting for Donna to come back in, but Zaid, this is where we talk about what's been going on last week and this week in terms of activism and what's going on. So and then I know DJ Rhino's coming in at 8:30.
Well, you know where you want to start. I actually had a whole list.
I know you do.
Ancestors.
I know you do.
I'll start with new ancestors. No, but this year I want to do it in an African way, right? We've got two memorials coming up for two important local legends in terms of organizing and the struggle for justice. Tomorrow will be the memorial for the late Glenn Ford. Glenn Ford is best known in the most recent iterations for the Black Agenda Report. He didn't do it by himself, but he was the driving force for the emergence of the Black Agenda Report. Black Agenda Report is a strong Black left alternative journalism organization that has been a very important vessel for voices that come from the radical tradition, like mine. Right, the last thing that I put out in my capacity for running the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee on Malcolm's assassination, Glenn picked that up right away. I didn't even ask him. He just picked it up right away. And hardly anyone else did, right? But Glenn was an old Panther with Jersey roots, originally from Georgia, but his family settled in, and he's been in Plainfield for a lot of years. And so we actually homeboys from Plainfield, New Jersey. But Glenn represented in a very real way, in a way that a lot of us looked up to him for. I mean, those of us who are not just younger than him, but some of us who are also his peers chronologically and politically, because he did it in such an upstanding way and with always such a searing analysis. I always wanted to bring the Black Panther newspaper back and have analytical columns of contemporary radical scholars. Glenn was at the top of my list if I could have pulled that off. Glenn passed away a little while ago, and he will be memorialized tomorrow at Riverside Church at 2:00. We lost Amanifa Williams, and some of us have alluded to Amanifa in passing in the last past weeks, because Amanifa was important to the People's Organization for Progress. But Amanifa, we got 80 years out of Baba Amanifa, and Baba Amanifa walked through several important spaces of struggle that are important to our Black radical tradition. He went into the Nation of Islam in the 1950s, right? At the beginning of its golden age as a consequence of the emergence of its first legendary organizer in Malcolm X. And when the nation made the mistake of turning on Malcolm and not realizing that they were being tools for white supremacy in the process, right? Amanifa was like many who were in the Nation of Islam and were disgusted with that. He left the Nation of Islam, went left to the West Coast, and found himself as one of the original, figures of the Kawaida movement, or the organization called Us, and was right there front and center for the very first implementation of Kwanzaa, and helped bring Kwanzaa to the East Coast, right? When he came to the East Coast, and because he came to the East Coast to work with Amiri, because Amiri took the whole Kawaida principles to a whole different space, far beyond what Maulana did, all due respect, and was a part of so much, right? When Maulana started having his issues with mistreating women, right? He left that, came east, also became a great organizer in the labor movement, right? You don't think of labor movement in this country, you think of privileged young white men who think that they should have certain kind of jobs, period, and don't care about anybody else that doesn't look like them coming into those kind of unions. Unfortunately, that's a stain on the backwardness of the labor movement in this country. But Amanifa Williams was a force in the labor movement at the Ford Motor Plant right here in Jersey before he retired. And Amanifa helped start Refall, not just with his money and not just being a member, filling out a piece of paper, but literally with his hands trying to work, physically working on the redoing of the building that is now 271 South 9th Street. And then he became the international ambassador for the People's Organization for Progress, the only person to have that post. So when you talk about the People's Organization for Progress outside of Jersey, you're talking about Baba Amanifu, then you're talking about Larry Ham, right? Amanifu had it like that. We will memorialize Amanifu at the Refile building next Saturday at 2 p.m. So I wanted to start with the ancestors first. There's a whole lot more that we could go on. But
you gave him
Rhino, DJ Rhino has come.
Yes, I was going to say it sounded like he should have his own autobiography, right? Like you went from movement after movement after movement.
Yeah,
the things I would even ask is even if the way that you break down these movements, it is fascinating. But welcome, DJ Rhino. How are you, man?
Peace. What's going on, fellas?
Oh man, just seeing what's going on with you, right, man? And so we're glad you are here. We're glad you are in this.
Yeah.
And I know Rhino better go somewhere where I know he need to go in this part of the show. If not, I'm gonna help him.
What's that?
Let him ride. Let Rhino ride, because I know he'll get there.
Oh wow, he setting you up, man.
All right.
He set you up. Like you just like, hey man, I jumped on early, and you're like, in this part of the show, I need to. I don't know.
No, I got you right.
I did not even give you a clue. At least he could give you a clue. Like,
He's gonna
hey
do the
man,
hip-hop out. He's gonna
you
do
know,
the
because
hip
no, and there's no pressure on this. Because Zaid, legendary activist, over 40 years of community activism, known all over the country, darn near different places in the world for the activism he does. And then he puts this pressure on you, and he's like, DJ Rhino,
I know he got it.
I know where you're going. And
I know he got it.
Oh, he came on early.
DJ Rhino, the best DJ in the whole universe. I know he got it.
Wow. All right, DJ. I'm gonna jump in if I have to. I know about Zaid will as well, but where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go?
All right, well, it's still Virgo season. So big ups to all the Virgos, V's up to all the Virgos.
I got a special Virgo birthday tomorrow. I got to shout out before we can go any further. My daughter Keisha's birthday's tomorrow, right? And
Nice.
let me tell you something. That beautiful young black woman who I love the pieces out of.
Yes.
Her face is representative of the face that is changing what social work looks like in this country in a revolutionary way.
That is our queen warrior sister right there.
Social work used to be an arm of the state tearing us from our families apart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by virtue of the wisdom of a leader like a Baraka, trying to make our city a trauma-informed city so our people can get the help we need, we got young queens like Keisha Yuri going all over the country trying to raise the volume and turning people's heads around and turning the character of what social work is supposed to look like, healing our people from the hurt that we've been through in this country over years. Happy birthday, baby girl. Her birthday's tomorrow.
Yeah, happy birthday, Keisha. Like
Keisha Yuri is definitely our queen warrior sister, man. You know what I mean? She's a real one. You know what I mean?
No, I absolutely.
And on the local front, we got.
Well, let me wait. Hold on, Zaid. Before you do that, I need to do the shout out for Keisha Yuri too, right? Like, because I can't really overstate the work that she does and how different it is and how cutting edge it is. Like, Newark is a model for the rest of the country when it comes to how we think about social work and the connection between social work and policy, right? Like, they are going to write books about what Keisha Yuri does. Hopefully Keisha will write some of those books herself to be able to control the narrative and form on the amazing work, the life-changing work that she is doing.
And hopefully I'll live long enough to see it. Shit.
Yes. Well, hopefully it won't be that long, man.
Yeah. I'm making it plain, right? Now, on that same note, it's not a birthday shout out, but it's an anniversary shout out because something else we don't talk about much too, but it's important. Trust me, when you're without it, you miss it, right? Our own Bashir Akanyele and his wife Tasha, they just celebrated their 26th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And I moderated their wedding. I ain't had one for myself, right? But I was so proud of them and so proud of how they have struggled with each other over the years to stay together to protect the sanctity and the sacredness of their black love, right? Those are some stories that we need too. So that's not a Virgo thing so much, but it's a September thing for sure. It's a shout out. They definitely
that's another thing too, man. What I realized is that there were a lot of marriages during this season. You know what I'm saying? My man G Rock, big ups to my man G Rock and his wife from out here in Jersey. They just celebrated their anniversary on my birthday. My brother Mellow Max, him and his wife just celebrated their anniversary on my born. But I also have to say condolences. My heart goes out to my brother Mellow Max, man. He just lost his wife. Just days on the 11th, matter of fact. So it was just days after their anniversary. He just lost his wife, Robin Moore. So rest in peace, Robin. They were like best friends for 30 years. You know what I mean? Prior to them getting married and all of that, they got married on my born day. And we just lost Robin on the 11th. So rest in peace, Robin. And Mellow Max, cool Mellow Max. Hold your head, family. We with you.
Supreme condolences. Supreme condolences.
Yeah, definitely. Now, getting back to the Virgo season right here on my shirt, Naughty by Nature, Vin Rock from Naughty. I want to say happy born to you, brother. You know, it's funny, man. You know, when Naughty was coming up, man, you know, a lot of people, you know, there were a lot of people that tried to treat Vin like he was like, you know, he was like the side man. He was Tretch's side man or Tretch's hype man. They did the same thing with Fife in Tribe Called Quest. But really, Fife is not a side man or a hype man. He was the other MC.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing with Vin Rock. Vin Rock was the other MC. And he showed himself, man, because I remember when it was early when people were saying that stuff about Vin. And then when Naughty put out Uptown Anthem, which was actually on the soundtrack of Juice, and they put out Uptown Anthem, Vin really showed and proved that, yeah, I'm the other MC. I'm not just some side dude. I'm not just Tretch's, you know, sidekick. I'm the other MC in this group. And he showed and proved that, and he's shown and proved that ever since. So big ups to Vin Rock, man. He's a humble brother, man. He's a real good brother, man. And yeah, man, I got mad love for Vin. So big ups to Vin Rock from Naughty by Nature. Also, I want to say happy born day to the God, Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian. It's his born day today also. You know, Brand Nubian, you know, they came out of New Rochelle. It was Lord Jamar, Sadat X, and Grand Poobah Maxwell. They came out of New Rochelle. They were on Electra Records. I know Dante Ross helped get them on and all of that. And they really represented, man, for conscious hip hop. You know, they represented for the gods and the earths, and they brought conscious hip hop to the table. And they were also, you know, Lord Jamar was also instrumental in helping the Artifacts, Newark hip hop group. The Artifacts helped get them on. He also helped put on Dead Prez, which is another super conscious hip hop group in our culture. You know what I'm saying? So big ups to Lord Jamar. Happy born, God. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy. Another born day today. The one and only, the greatest entertainer, Dougie Fresh. Dougie Fresh. And you know, Dougie Fresh, you know, he was doing beatbox and stuff like that with Treacherous 3 and other groups, man. He was doing stuff early in the game. You know, a lot of people didn't even know Dougie. Dougie was the first one to really do hip hop, human beatbox, doing beatbox with his mouth. Right. Very first one to really do that. So, you know, and you know, he paired up with Slick Rick, and they became like the ultimate duo. Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh. They put out the show and Lottie Dottie, which are classics. Those songs are gonna last till the end of time. You know what I'm saying? Lottie Dottie is gonna last forever.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, Dougie Fresh. Another thing about Doug, man, you know, there was a time where my group Hidden Descent was being managed by my man Cosby, brother named Cosby Kyle, and he lived uptown in Harlem, right next door, right in the next building to Dougie Fresh. So we used to link up with Dougie, and we used to link up with Doug's son, because Doug's son was like our age. And you know, we just link up and just kick it, talk, we get into hip hop and all of that. You know, and Doug was another one, man. He was just real down to earth, man. He'd be chilling on his stoop, just kicking it and just being real and real humble and just true. You know what I'm saying? So that's another good brother, man. Dougie Fresh, he's a legend. If you've never seen Dougie Fresh on stage, make sure you find some kind of way to see Dougie Fresh on stage, because when they call him the greatest entertainer, it's no lie. This dude gets the entire place. I mean, he can get a whole arena just out of their seats. You know what I'm saying? And have people singing and chiming in and all of that. Like, Dougie Fresh is the ultimate entertainer in hip hop, man. So I want to definitely say happy born day to Dougie Fresh. And one more, Steady B from Philly. Steady B from Philly. It's his born day also. Happy born day to Steady B. Now, unfortunately, if anybody, I don't know if everybody knows, but you know, Steady B was one of those brothers, man. He came out of Philly. He was rocking. KRS did some work with him. He was on Jive Records. But there was at some point, I don't know what was going on in his personal life, but at some point, Steady B and the brother Cool C, who was another MC from out of Philly, they tried to conduct a bank heist, and they ended up killing one of the security officers that was there, and they are both doing life in prison. This was years and years ago, when this happened, when they first went to jail. And they're still in there now. Steady B and Cool C from Philly are still in prison now.
Pennsylvania will keep you in there for life too.
Yeah. So hold your head steady, man. Happy Born Day. Hold your head, bro. We ain't forget about you out here in hip hop and the culture. We ain't forget about you out here.
You said one more. Now, actually, you didn't get to the one that I wanted you to get to, but it wasn't. It wasn't a birth anniversary. It was a special anniversary. Right?
Wow. So all that and all that setup, Baba Zay, that's not even fair, man.
No. I'm not Chris.
I'm Chris Randall.
Set us up.
Chris Randall is always like, you're setting us up.
But before you get into that, I just also want to say happy anniversary to Rod Digger, Brick City's Rod Digger.
Right on, right, straight out of New York.
Had her sophomore album. It was called Classic. It came out 11 years ago today, and it was really a classic. I know a lot of people talk about Rod Digger's debut album, which was called Dirty Harriet. That was her breakout album when she first came out. She had Outsiders on there and Busta Rhymes and Flip Mode and everybody. But her second album, which is called Classic, was really a classic in my personal opinion. The whole album was produced by a producer named Knots, he's one of my favorite producers out there. I mean, I got a lot of favorites, but he's one of them. He just knows how to really put together those boom bap beats with the bass lines, and he did the whole album for Rod Digger, and the whole album, top to bottom, is just heat. I love that album, and I told Rod Digger, I reached out to her a few times to tell her that's the album.
Where is she now?
Rod Digger still moving. She is still moving. She's constant. She's still part of the You Know What I Mean Godcast with Lord Jamar and Godfrey. They're still doing the Godcast every week. But Rod Digger is busy, man. She stays moving. She's still touring, doing shows, and showing up in places, man. She's still doing stuff on film. Like, she's staying busy, and that's the beautiful thing, man. When we have our hip hop artists who are OGs now. She's an OG now,
Right.
But she's still doing it. She's working, man, and she's staying on top of her game. So big ups to Rod Digger, and happy anniversary to the Classic album, because it was a classic. It was named properly because it was a classic album for sure. But Zaire, tell me now, who did I miss?
September 13th is the 25th anniversary
of Tupac Shakur.
Yeah.
We lost Tupac. Now, that's another another story.
5 years ago, I'm like, wow.
That's another story.
Wait, did you say 25 years ago?
25 years ago.
1996.
Wow.
Let me break this down. September 13th, 1996. Pac dies on the birthday of his Uncle G. Who's Uncle G? Geronimo Jijaga Pratt, right? One of the baddest soldiers we had in the Black Panther Party. Did 27 years in prison, right? Did 2 tours in the U.S. Marines and brought all that training into the Black Panther Party. Great Panther, right? Took Pac, and I remind everybody that was our most famous cub of the Black Panther Party.
Right.
And didn't Johnny Cochran get Geronimo Pratt released?
I say directly tied to somebody worrying about the emergence of transformation of Pac, on the shoulders of that legacy. So, but there's so much. He's so loaded. His legacy is so loaded, and it's just hard to believe he's been gone 25 years.
And when he got shot on the 7th, which was my birthday. I had just come home from a birthday celebration with my family. I just come home from Red Lobster or something like that, and as soon as I walked in, my girlfriend at the time, she had yelled out to me from the back room saying, Tupac got shot. And I remember my reaction at that time was like, again? and then to myself, I was like, he'll be all right, because he been through it like 2 times already. Like, what I mean? Like, Pac's been through this like a couple of times already, getting shot. So I was like, man, he'll be all right. He'll be all right. He'll be good, because he survived the last couple times it happened to him. Yeah. But then, boom, 6 days later, man, on the 13th, I remember that day. I was in New York City with my crew, Hidden Descent, And I just remember how solemn everything was. It was a bright, sunshiny day, but it was quiet. It was real quiet. You didn't hear nothing. Like nobody had anything to say. You know what I mean? It was just real quiet when Pac passed. So but yeah, rest in peace, Tupac Shakur, man. That was the brother, man. You know what he meant to us in hip hop, Zaire. You know what he meant to us in hip hop.
But for the benefit of these young heads listening to you, you may want to. We want your wisdom. What do you want? Why?
What he meant to us? All right. We again. My generation was totally floored by Public Enemy when Public Enemy first really hit. Right. So they were hitting from a political standpoint, somewhat of a spiritual standpoint, but definitely just a revolutionary standpoint. Public Enemy was making noise. And they kind of set the standard at that time where, you had other conscious artists coming out. And Tupac comes out at a time where that was about to shift. Like we were going from conscious music to gangster music. You know what I'm saying? The whole gangster thing. And Tupac comes out and pretty much keeps the consciousness going on. He's still part of the gangster thing. He adapted the thug life and all of that, but he kept the consciousness. He kept dropping the gems and the knowledge for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So it was never a thing where it was like he slipped off his course. It was never a thing where he was representing something that wasn't good for us. You know what I mean? Pac knew how to walk the line. You know what I'm saying? He knew how to walk the line and keep the people that were in the streets, keep their ear, and as well as keep the people who were already there mentally as far as trying to make changes in the world, in our society. And Pac represented that, man. He represented it well, and when you talk about, even before DMX, man, when you talk about somebody really connecting to the people in the streets, the downtrodden, the ones that were really struggling in the streets, Pac reached to them. He reached out to them. He touched those people. You know what I'm saying? And that's not going to be matched. You know what I mean? So that's what he meant.
I want folks to hear that.
Yeah,
Folks to hear that.
And also, being a Public Enemy fan and knowing that Public Enemy was representing a Panther energy. You know what I'm saying? Pac was representing that same thing. So we made that connection. You know what I'm saying? We made that connection and we respected where he was coming from because we knew about his mom's and her history. And so we respected all of that, man. And so Pac is always going to be held up real high. And I remember when Pac passed, right out here in Newark, you better not say nothing negative about Tupac out here in the bricks.
I love that. I love that. It was a heavy day. It was a heavy day. Now, about his family background, I got to say several things. Quiet as kept, his biological father's from Plainfield, New Jersey. Right? Billy Garland. Right. Billy, brothers disappeared for whatever reasons. Brothers disappeared. Right. He wasn't in Pac's life. And actually, Billy's nephew was one of my fighters, Adam Garland, at the Second Street Youth Center. Right. And Adam was a damn good fighter. Right. But Pac's mother, was a legend. Right. When they went on trial, the New York 21 Panthers that went on trial for their lives back in '69, Afeni Shakur, pregnant with Pac, pregnant with him, in jail every day. They didn't get bail. Most of them were in jail, right? And they brought to court, right? Defended herself. That's his mama. You think no bigger than 5'1", maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, right? Brilliant. One of the best things to happen to the legendary New York chapter of the Black Panther Party. His stepfather, who did help raise him, right, is none other than Dr. Mutulu Shakur, one of our most renowned political prisoners. Mutulu, talk about healing and the kind of stuff we need in our community right now. Mutulu, who didn't have any medical background, but who had a personal thing about the drug war that was put in motion to destroy our movement, when it was a part of the Black Panther Party's solidarity with the People's Republic of China, right? the place of color that was a superpower to challenge white Soviet Union and white United States, right? When they did that solidarity embrace, literally went over there, right? And Matulu saw what the value and the range of what could be done with acupuncture as a natural healing modality for addiction. He became an acupuncturist, came back to the States, trained doctors. I mean, real doctors in acupuncture, right? To create a space for folks who needed to get clean and didn't want to get re-addicted through methadone, right? Got cleaned up as a way to combat, how capitalism brought drugs into our community. And he winds up being targeted by the state, and he's in prison now fighting for his freedom and fighting against bone cancer. So when anybody hear the name Dr. Matulu Shakur, he merits major respect and immediate support of a real and immediate kind. So I had to lift that up. Because so I'm saying that what you just lifted up about Pac, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's where it comes from. You got it real honest, right? Pac is actually born on the anniversary of what would become the Soweto uprising. He was born on the 16th of June, right? So you can't make this stuff up.
Right.
Numbers, right? That you own. You can't make the. I call it the ancestral wizardry of the numbers, the math. Ancestral math.
Mathematics. That's right.
Yes, it's there. It's right there.
Yep.
It's right there. So I had to get that in for Pac. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to shout out Aisha Obafemi. I was nurtured a lot by her father, Ahmed Obafemi, and her mother, Fulani Ali, Sunni Ali. I was actually in Cuba with her mother the last time I was in Cuba, right? But Aisha has a book coming out on Pac, and I haven't been able to pin her down. But she went south to Atlanta, just as she was beginning to make her move professionally with her life. And when she came through Black Watch, right, and the New African Independence movement through her family, right, the Black Watch with hip hop. Right.
Yeah, Black Watch was X-Clan and Sonny Carson's son.
That's right. Boomba Carson.
That's right.
To the east.
Black
Watch. That's right. Right?
Yep.
She relocated south, but she's got a book coming out on Pac and her relationship with Pac and how the movement, influenced all of that. So at some point I'd like to bring her forward. I haven't been able to track her behind down though. And I tease her, quietly on Facebook about that. But yeah, there's so much to Pac, so I just had to throw that in there.
Definitely. He's got a rich history, a rich background.
Indeed.
Also, there was an event that took place in Brooklyn. I wasn't able to go, but my man G was actually able to go. He put up a few clips that I saw. It was I think it was called Club Quarantine, and it was in Brooklyn. It was a big concert, and I mean it was a huge concert because when he threw up the clips that I was looking at, I'm like, wow. I mean, they had Stephanie Mills, they had Common, they had KRS. There was so many people. I wish I had some of it in front of me, but it was a huge event.
What was this?
It was called Club Quarantine. It was outside. It was an event outside in Brooklyn. And I think
okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. And it was over. I think it was yesterday. Matter of fact, I think it was yesterday that it went down. Either yesterday or Wednesday, but it was crazy, man. The people that were there, I was Anthony Hamilton was there. There were a lot of artists. It wasn't just hip hop; it was hip hop, R&B, and a lot of different artists there. But it was real cool though. I gotta try to pull up some of those clips and check it out again. So anybody that knows about it, you can probably go to YouTube. I'm sure somebody got clips of it on YouTube as well. But that's it for all I got right now.
And so was this something that you're saying? Was this something that D Nice sponsored or did?
Yeah.
So in terms of like the Club Quarantine,
all over the place.
He's the the DJ, the official DJ of the Quarantine continues.
Yeah. And it was good to see KRS on stage with D Nice in the back. You know what I mean? Because that's original BDP from back in the day.
Nice. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's true.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. D-Nice. That was because D-Nice was a young guy when he was down with KRS and Scott Rock. You know?
Okay.
He was just learning how to do beats and stuff like that back then.
Wow. Okay. That is good. So DJ Rhino, you're like that's the state of hip hop?
That's the state of hip hop right now, man. You know, like you know, in my personal life, man, you know, I lost like 4 people in 3 weeks, so I've been kind of like occupied.
Condolences, brother. And prayers.
Oh, well, I have to say this because we're talking about hip hop and we represent Brick City. I have to do this. My man Sha, aka Young Assassin, he was a young MC from out here in the bricks. I used to see this brother almost every day around my old block out here. And he was a champion. He was one of the champions of the Lyrical Combat MC contest that we used to have out here in Newark.
Wow.
Thrown by my boy, my brother, Black 45. We used to put together these battles. We had hand-to-hand combat with the DJs. We had lyrical combat with the MCs. We had Meet the Producers, which was a producer battle. But lyrical combat, Young Assassin was one of those. He was one of the champions of lyrical combat, man. He was really nice, man. I threw a clip on my Facebook page. You can check it out. The Young Assassin live on the mic, just spitting, man. The kid had so much potential, and you know, it just hurts to know that he's not here no more because, like I said, I used to see him almost every day around my old block. And
so what happened? Make a play. What happened?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was a health issue. I'm not sure how he passed. I believe it was a health issue, man. But it was sudden, man, because just out of nowhere. Like I said, I seen him almost every day, and then boom, I just hear from Black 45, the brother that used to throw the events. I hear that, you know, he said that he was gone. I was like, wow, man. But his name was Young Assassin. Some people out here know him as Sha Rule, but his name was Young Assassin, man. He was a young cat from out here, Brick City, right there on Crane off of Summer Ave, right here in Newark. And yo, rest in peace to that brother, man. You know, I was really hoping that one day we were gonna, and we used to talk about it too, man, that we would link up one day and do some music together, man, because he really had a lot of potential, man, to be such a young lyricist, like the way he was, man. And it's just a heavy loss to, you know, for him to be gone, man. So rest in peace, Young Assassin, Brick City.
Yo, you muted, Jonathan.
One thing I want to ask you about, Rhino, is you do like I love hearing your DJing, right? Like you're one of the best DJs in the universe. So are you doing something tomorrow? Or can we hear you? Where can we hear you?
Yes. Tomorrow on twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ. I'm going to be on there at 3 p.m. I'm usually on there every Saturday at 3 p.m. It's called the Shake Up with CMZ at 3. Check me out, twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ. At 3 p.m. I'll be there. I'm usually from 3 to 6.
Awesome.
And Rhino, all roads lead to Livingston Mall tomorrow for the Chem Fest, right?
For the Chem Fest. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that's tomorrow. That's
Livingston
right.
Mall.
Livingston Mall. All roads lead to
right.
Livingston
That's
Mall
right.
for the Chem Fest.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that.
Right.
I gotta pull that
Support
up.
the great Nasib gifted VP of Science High should be principal, so they say.
That's right.
So tell everybody to take the youngins up there to Livingston Mall so that they can experience Chem Fest. I think this is the first time they'll be broadcasting from Livingston Mall. It's been at the Haynes Building in the past and other locations in Newark.
Yeah.
They're making their debut at Livingston Mall.
Livingston Mall will never be the same.
As you said last week. That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. Livingston Mall about to get some soul. Boy. Real. That's right.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
We made it. So let's just chop it up real quick. We'll round it up. What say you? What say you?
What's the
now?
naughty? Did we get the 411 on the Naughty by Nature t-shirt? No,
Oh
I didn't
yeah.
get my
Yeah, it's Vin
Okay.
Rock's birthday. It's Vin Rock's
Okay.
birthday today. Yeah.
Birthday, Uncle Vinny.
Yeah, it's Vinny's birthday, it's Dougie Fresh's birthday, it's Lord Jamal from Brand Nubian's birthday, and it's Steady B from Philly's birthday.
You know what? I'm in the city more now, Rhino, and I see all of this publication about the Wu-Tang. Have you had an opportunity to watch the series about the Wu-Tang gang?
I haven't watched any of the new episodes yet. Nah.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but the last time they were on, the last season, yeah, I dug it.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. I'm hearing a lot of good, positive feedback about that. So I would love for you to give us some homework on that and for us to check it out because, and who's playing Method Man?
I think it's still Dave East.
Okay, I never seen it, so yeah.
Oh
okay.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Dave East is playing Method Man. He's doing a good job too, because he kind of resembles Meth in the way he does it. You know, he's doing a good job. Yeah.
And so you were pleased with it, and you know, speaking of hip hop and the power that it has, have you watched the Power Book 3 Kanan?
Nah, I have never gotten into that, but
okay.
I know my wife has. I'll speak with her about it.
Yeah, and I just. So what do you watch? So what do you think of it, Donna?
Well, what I'm talking about from the impact of hip hop and how they have to go back. You're actors, so you know you have to go back to do era pieces, and so what they're doing. One of the storylines is their Albie Shore's son is in there, and my goodness, as soon as he came on the screen, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Albie Shore's son. He looked just the one that Puffy raised. He looked just like Albie Shore, but he's a music producer, if you will, and he's producing new hip hop artists. So even if for nothing else, you should watch it for that perspective. But how they are putting like the 80s music in there, and these young artists are coming out, and Albie Shore's son is playing a music producer who's producing these artists. So it's interesting from that perspective.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I gotta check
and,
that out.
And I gotta give 50 Cent. In all of the Kanans, his casting is very, very good from how the family members look alike. And it's really, your casting is really. My girlfriend she did the casting for Biggie's movie, the one, and you know she talked a lot about casting. And we should have her on and about the importance of casting.
What's her name?
Yeah, it is important.
Wendy. Yeah, and to make the characters believable.
Yeah.
And and so I was like, you know, and how. These characters, they look like family for one, you know. They look like they can be related. And I just think that 50 has done a great job with the Power series.
Okay. Now going back to the Wu-Tang thing, I have to find out from my family because in the first season, if you remember, Ghostface, he had two younger brothers that were handicapped. Oh, that's right, Donna. You didn't see it. That's right, you didn't see it the first time. But Ghostface has two younger brothers who were disabled. My cousin Amir Harris plays one of his brothers in the wheelchair. So I need to find out and see if he's going to be in this season, so I can spread that word for the family.
And I just think from casting, because I know one of the things, the movie Tracy Morgan's series that he did with the woman that's a comedian. Remember he had that series on? Who's the woman that's a comedian? I can't think of her name. She's real good too. But Tracy Morgan had a series, and they did. She's young. What's her name?
Tiffany Haddish.
Tiffany Haddish, and I think she was Tracy Morgan's ex-wife in this series. But it's really good. But again, this one is shot in Brooklyn. And the casting's great, and the background is just old school Brooklyn. And they did a whole series on so if I had to say, look at these different shows and how they're casting, and particularly around that 80s hip hop era, they're all doing a great job. And from a casting standpoint, it's probably a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Donna, or any of you guys,
most fun of my life when I was acting.
Have any of you guys seen the verses with Fat Joe and Ja Rule?
No.
Nah?
That's the homework we're gonna get this week. Okay.
That was the recent verses that we had this week. It was the verses between Fat Joe and Ja Rule.
what I do know is Fat Joe had to come out and apologize to the sisters.
Yeah. I was going to get to that. But first, I was going to say, a lot of people, it was, of course, you know how it is. You got people that side with Fat Joe, people side with Ja Rule as far as who they got for the verses. And then a lot of people, when it was over, a lot of people felt like Ja Rule won. And I do think I personally feel Ja Rule won. Fat Joe had a lot of hits, but when you listen to Ja Rule, you realize how many hits Ja Rule really, really had. And I think the only reason why we forgot about all of those hits Ja Rule had was because of 50 Cent. You know what I'm saying? Because 50 Cent just overpowered Ja Rule in that whole beef that they had. And so we kind of just forgot about Ja Rule. You know what I mean? But there was a time when Ja Rule was ruling. He was ruling, and you learn that in the verses. When you watch the verses, you really get reminded of how many hit songs that Ja Rule had. And plus also the reason why Ja Rule was so strong in his moment at that time was because he had a lot of songs for the ladies, even the hard joints.
Ashanti, shout out to Ashanti, yeah.
Big up to Ashanti, she came out there representing. Big ups to Lil Mo. Lil Mo came out there. She looked good, she sounded good. Lil Mo was on point. Like y'all really got to see that because Lil Mo did her thing. But now going to what you were talking about, right, Donna? Like when Dipset and Lox did their verses, they made it a thing. They made a point of making sure that they were going to talk mess to each other. They did that on purpose. We're going to go out here and we're going to talk crazy to each other. You know what I'm saying? Just to give it that real battle feel. You know what I'm saying? So that's what was going on between Ja Rule and Fat Joe. They were, trash talking each other a little bit. But Joe said something. Joe said something about those dusty bees you got in the back. And I knew that was going to cause problems because who he had in the back was Vita, Lil Mo, and Ashanti. And, even after they came out and they performed, Joe said, this is why, I don't know. It is what it is, but Joe got some splaining to do because
he has apologized.
Yeah, but my thing is also, even after he made that remark, when the girls came out and they performed, and then when they left, he said something slick too. Talking about, you got to feed them. They look like they need to eat or something. I really think, I personally, in my opinion, I think Fat Joe was talking about Vita for the most part because Vita was the lesser known female in that situation. A lot of people forgot about Vita. Vita was on a couple of joints that Ja Rule put out. Vita was, she did verses and stuff on there. But Vita hasn't been in the spotlight, so she's been kind of like, off the radar. So I don't know, man. I think it just seemed like Fat Joe was kind of trash talking Vita a little, and that was his way of doing it. But it didn't go over well. Lil Mo wasn't happy. Remy Ma tried to step in and stand up for Joe and support Joe and kind of like come up with reasons for him. But it wasn't happening though. Little Mo wasn't having it. Leave the ladies alone, man. Yeah. Honestly, I think come back. The exchange between Remy Ma and Lil Mo is this thing might stretch on a little bit longer. I don't know because you know how the ladies get, man. When the mouths start going, one says something crazy to the other one. It's So I don't know. Lil Mo and Remy Ma, they gotta squash that. But yeah, Fat Joe, he made his apology, But like I said, Lil Mo, I don't think Lil Mo was down for the apology. She ain't really accepted.
So Rhino, let's talk a little bit about Nicki Minaj.
What's up with Nicki? Oh, with the comment that she made.
Yeah, where she said that one of our family members had become impotent because he had taken the COVID jab. Yeah, and then of course she claimed, or at least the White House is claiming, that she said that they had asked her in regards to coming to the White House for a meeting, and they're now claiming that there was never an offer for her to come to the White House, there was an offer to have a conversation with some of the scientists from the White House to explain to her exactly what was in that shot, and that claim of her family member saying that they'd become impotent because of the shot is not medically or scientifically possible.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I'm sure her claims came from what we all kind of dealing with right now, just the uncertainty of it all. The uncertainty of the vaccines, or the vaccines going to work, or the vaccines harmful, or the, you know, all of that stuff. So I'm sure a lot of that just came from her uncertainty, and she kind of made it plain that that's where it was coming from. She, you know, she didn't come straight out and say, "Oh, it was the vaccine that did it," but she was basically saying that it could be he had the vaccine and then this happened. So, you know, it was on her. It was on her mind, you know, and I understand the uncertainty. Man. Things moved very quick throughout this whole pandemic, man, for all of us, man. Things move very fast, and nothing's for sure, man. You just got to be careful and take it slow. And that's for whatever direction you take, whether you for the vaccine, whether you're not for the vaccine. Just take it slow, man, and move strategically. This is your life.
But what she said is that she didn't. When they asked her if she would take the vaccine, she said yes, because in order for her to travel, she recognizes that she would not be able to perform in any of the venues. So therefore, she know that she would have to take the vaccination in order to be able to make a living.
Right. So yeah, so she's not anti-vax. She's just unsure, you know. And I get it. I totally get it.
And the fact that she made that statement, I think that's perhaps where the attack is coming from, right? Because what they're saying is that she made that statement without having their facts, right? So whatever information she was given, she went based on that. And of course, because she represents such a large population, I don't know how many millions of young followers she has online, but she apparently speaks to a large audience.
Yeah. And I think that's what the White House was. That was the reason the White House reached out, because of the number of followers that she has, and they wanted to be mindful of when she speaks to a volume of people, and they wanted her to have more sound information, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think that's what it was, right? But listen, you know, one of the things that they say in Hollywood is that, you know, all publicity is good publicity, right? So, you know, no one had heard from Nicki Minaj for a while. Now, all of a sudden, right, she's on the front cover of the Washington Post on their online paper. So, you know, she's now known to a whole bunch of people who probably didn't know her before. Not just her audience, but a whole bunch of other folks who didn't know her.
Right. And moving forward, I mean, this can just be a positive thing, because, you know, at some point she'll get more information on the situation, and she'll know, and she'll be able to share that with the people, with her fans or whoever, you know what I mean? So, you know, moving forward, it's just a positive thing. You know what I mean?
And I think also this is the week, the annual legislative conference is going on right now virtually. And there is a big hip hop forum that they always do down at the annual legislative conference, albeit it's virtual this year. And perhaps that was the reach out to say, hey, we got this forum, we got this panel. Since you're talking about it, let's talk about it. Yeah. You know, so maybe it was that reach too.
Yeah.
Before we leave, I wanted to when you was talking about Ja Rule, I wanted to give a shout out. One of my movies was The Cookout. Was that Queen Latifah? He played in that movie. You remember? Did you see that? Did you see that, Rhino?
Yeah, I saw that a long time ago.
Yeah, shout out, because Ja Rule, he had his acting career up and coming. So
yeah,
I just want, you know,
in a few things. That's what I'm saying. Ja Rule had a run.
Yeah.
He was in movies. He had hit albums, hit singles, and hit videos, and I mean, he was really doing his thing, man. It was unfortunate that, you know, the whole thing with him and 50 happened, because that really it dusted his career, man. It was like, you know, he was on top and then it was over.
Boom, just yeah. He was living in Essex County, so we got to give him a shout out. He was had a house up in West Orange for a second, so shout out to Jarro. Yeah.
All right.
So what's
Well, listen,
going
y'all,
on?
any final statements? We got 1 minute left.
Yeah,
Any
since
final
you're on
statements you wanna
movies,
make?
I got to shout this out: The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. Right, just dropped. Frankie Faison playing the lead of a Marine vet who was killed in a mental health crisis in White Plains, New York, several years ago. It's a great story. It looks like it's a great film about one of those dimensions about police brutality that we got to deal with, right? And this is one of the arguments that we talk about with defunding the police, right? Police do not handle wellness checks well. They go in with guns and they kill people, right? So, well, I want folks to appreciate that. I'm talking to his son, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. We can get him on. We just got to get a Friday that we can agree on, because he's become a voice in his own right around police brutality and social justice in the wake of his father's death. But this is a good film. A lot of serious black Hollywood players are invested in it.
And what's the name?
The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain.
Okay. Is it on Netflix or something?
No. It's just in the theaters. It's just dropped in the theaters.
Okay.
It opens this weekend.
And anybody who hasn't seen it yet, make sure you also see Blood Brothers.
Yeah, you was just talking about that next week. Yeah, Netflix.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Ilyasa to come on. I haven't been able to pin her down.
Okay. Yeah, she did a good. I'm gonna get you also the producer of the movie, Zaid, so you can see if you can reach out to him as well. So I'll send you that name. So what only thing I want to say is everybody make your way to Livingston Mall to Kim Fest. Go check out Kim Fest is the 18th and the 19th, and we'll repost it on the All Politics Are Local page, and just get out there and support this great effort. And this is the 7th year, I believe. Principal Nasir said, "Yeah."
Donna, what times does that start? You know?
I want to say 12 noon.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Like 12 to 6. That might be a little longer than 6, but it starts at 12 both days.
Okay.
All right.
I was hoping I can, but I got to be in the streets Sunday. Then I'll close with this. Major Gulio Dale, a brother who did 40 years in the U.S. Army, just came back from Afghanistan in a mental health crisis. Is killed by the police in Newton, New Jersey on the 4th of July. I got to do a vigil out there on Sunday at 3 o'clock. Newton, New Jersey, Newton Green, 330. So, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop until we stop it.
All right. Rhino, you got any final words, my brother?
Just check me, once again, check me tomorrow, 3 p.m., twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ. It's called The Shake Up with CMZ at 3 tomorrow afternoon.
All right. And also, we want to take this opportunity to, of course, thank the mayor for coming through to do the forum. And we want to thank our two guests that came in tonight. Zaid, you want to say their names one more time?
Maria Lopez-Nuñez and Melissa Miles, two bad rock throwers out of the Ironbound Community Corporation, right here. Melissa's now head of the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance as well. They're two of our strongest voices and two young voices, right, on the question of environmental justice that walked us through what Ida looks like through black and brown eyes.
And we thank those sisters for coming through. And of course, Rhino, we thank you, my brother, for coming through
to Chris
to do your thing. Yeah. And I don't know if we should say thank you to Chris. Chris was trying to go in on John tonight. I don't know if you want to say thank you to him.
He going on everybody.
We're gonna try to go in on John with the man. But thanks to Chris for going out with you, Rhino, last week and covering 24 hours of peace as well, my brother. Yeah. So appreciate both of y'all for doing that. Yeah. Well, listen, folks, that's our show for tonight. We thank y'all so much for tuning in. Of course, y'all know that every Friday from 6 to 9, we are All Politics Are Local. Of course, Zaid, Muhammad, myself, Donna, and John, and of course, DJ Rhino. We thank y'all for tuning in and checking us out. We'll see y'all next week. Remember, this is All Politics Are Local, America's number one hip-hop radio talk show. We're out.